Chapter 461. What is a surprise? Does Dormammu still bring me up? Hasn't he always only talked about you? Leon chuckled. Almost every Strange in every universe has to negotiate with him at least once, Strange replied. That's true, but many negotiations succeed and many also fail, Strange smiled. In fact, there's something I need to discuss with you. After the pleasantries, Dr. Strange got straight to the point. Not long ago, Klee and I went to the Dark Dimension to resolve a collision crisis. He explained slowly. We ran into a Hell Lord and several demon gods invading the Dark Dimension. They didn't have much direct effect on me, Strange continued. It's like what you're seeing now. I failed, because it wasn't a single universe colliding. It was many. Perhaps countless. Countless? Leon's eyes narrowed. That's my guess. I stopped some collisions, but it didn't change the outcome. More universes could be crashing into ours. So I hope, Strange hesitated, lips pressed tight. This was difficult for him. Proud, stubborn, and used to handling things alone, he rarely asked for help. But after the Infinity War, after Wanda, and after meeting Klee, he had a reason to protect Earth. He swallowed and said, I hope I can get your help, Leon. His emerald eyes flickered. I was once Sorcerer Supreme, a disciple of the Ancient One. We're both dedicated to protecting the Earth dimension. Could I ask you, when the next collision happens, to help us? Even his breathing sounded strained. His hands, clasped behind his back, trembled. These words were hard for him to speak. In the past, he never would have asked. Leon could see how much it took for Strange to say them. It was exactly what Leon wanted to hear. Very well. Sorcerer Supremes should communicate more with each other, Leon said. I'll leave an M-body permanently stationed in your world. When you can't resolve the next collision crisis, I'll step in. An M-body? Strange blinked, an unfamiliar term. Leon passed him and explained, It's a clone, a body I can project into. Now look over there. Iron Man seems to be planning a dinner for everyone. They spent the evening at a dinner party. Later, Spider-Man, Holland, opened the space-time gate and sent everyone home. The visitors from the S-universe first arrived in the main universe, then reopened the gate to return to their own world. At the moment of departure, Leon paused, sensing something. He looked up and saw a spaceship appear out of nowhere in main universe space, streaking toward Earth. He peered through, frowning. Inside were the Fantastic Four and Mr. Fantastic Reed's two children. Reed? Oh no, that little menace Reed is back! Leon raised an eyebrow and nudged Tony forward. Ever since B-15 had mentioned Mr. Fantastic would one day return to the main universe, Leon had been prepared. He hadn't expected it so soon, but he didn't dwell on the main universe's Reed. The instant he passed through the space-time gate back to his own universe, he checked outside. Fortunately, their universe remained quiet. No approaching ships. The general progression of our world still follows the main universe's timeline, Leon muttered to himself. So Mr. Fantastic in our universe shouldn't return until around 2025. That's still a while. He relaxed. He had plans to relocate these heroes to other universes before the Fantastic Four could land, but with 2025 still ahead, there was no rush. You seemed a bit anxious just now, Tony called out curiously. Anxious? Oh, right. There's something urgent, Leon said, remembering an item on his schedule. Tony grinned and pushed Leon toward Kara and Diana, teasing. Leon waved him off. Captain Banner, you two go back first. Tony and I have something to do. Leon gestured. Wanda, Pietro, stay with me a bit. Everyone said their goodbyes and dispersed. Even after saving a neighboring world, they all had obligations. Banner's classes at the Mage Academy, work, lives. Soon only Leon, Wanda, Pietro, and Tony remained. Leon, is there really something for me? Pietro asked, scratching his head. You and Wanda usually act like I don't exist. Pietro, Wanda shot a red glow into her palm. All right, you're the younger brother. I won't say anything more. Pietro ducked, pretending to be offended. It's not that, Leon said with a smile, opening a portal. On the other side, rows of single-story wooden houses lined a snowy street in Sokovia. Snowflakes drifted down as they stepped through. Leon led them to one house, unlocked the door, and beckoned, "Come in." Tony and the others followed. The interior was arranged exactly like Wanda and Pietro's childhood living room, the same furniture, the same small details. Is this the surprise? Wanda whispered, tears already forming. Not yet, Leon said. The surprise is next. He smiled and held out his palm. It's starting. At his thought, the scene around them began to rewind. The house they stood in didn't disassemble so much as play its construction backward. Boards retracted, walls folded flat. Time across Sokovia seemed to run in reverse. Skyscrapers vanished, older, dilapidated buildings reappeared, the city reverting to an earlier, darker state. The four of them watched as the landscape rewound until the night settled many years in the past. "Stop," Leon called. The vision froze. They stood inside a shabby apartment. Wanda's parents and her younger self and Pietro sat cramped on a sofa watching a small TV. Wanda stared at them, tears welling, a sudden, terrible premonition filling her. "You're not going to," she began, disbelief and fear in her voice. "This is the surprise, Wanda." Leon lowered his head and gently kissed her forehead. Then he faced the frozen scene and intoned, "Time reversal." In the starry sky world, a lawmaster could pull someone who had died in the river of time back into the present. That was resurrection, a power granted by the source will. What Leon was doing now was the same in effect, but different in method. He relied on his control over time and the boundless energy of the Infinity Stones to force the timeline to reverse and pluck people from the past. He was dragging Wanda and her brother back to the moment their parents died. When the couple fell under the blast, Leon ripped their existence out of that moment and toward the present. Time-space reversal. The scene before the four of them resumed as if a frozen film had been sped up. The world unspooled like a rapid-moving reel. Images flooded them and then cut into a single clear frame, the living room of the little wooden house in Sokovia. This time, alongside Leon and the three others, the Maximoff couple stood in the room. At the same instant, in the cemetery on the outskirts of Sokovia, their previously decayed remains still existed, but on a higher plane. In death's hands, the two souls Leon had intended to reclaim hovered, dissolving into nothing. Somewhere in that boundless darkness, 2 points of green fire blinked. Death opened her eyes and solitary watched. "Leon," she murmured, "bringing people from the past into the present without branching the timeline. An interesting trick." Inside the small house, the parents looked exactly as they had at the moment of their death. Their memories held on the instant the missile's roar and the conflagration engulfed them. "Wanda! Pietro! Quick! Hide under the bed!" they shouted, panic slicing through them. Hearing their names ripped Wanda and Pietro out of everything. They were stunned for a beat, and then, hearing their parents' voices after more than a decade, the siblings lost control. They ran forward and threw themselves around the couple, clinging hard. "Dad, Mom, we're here. It's okay, we're here." The parents were as bewildered as their children were relieved. "This, you're Wanda? You're Pietro. How are you so big? Wasn't there a missile?" "Wait, where's the missile?" "That was over 10 years ago," Wanda said. "Leon resurrected you." She pointed, but Leon and Tony were already gone. Only the Maximoff family remained in the house. "Leon is Wanda's boyfriend," Pietro blurted out. "Although, to be honest, Wanda kind of doesn't deserve someone like him. He's Superman." Pietro's admiration for anyone heroic was as predictable as his knack for annoying Wanda. "Pietro," she snapped. "Did I say something wrong? What are you going to do? Dad and Mom are right here." "Slow down, both of you," the parents said, trading a bewildered look. Confusion gave way to a strange, tentative acceptance of the miracle death had refused to keep. They breathed in, adjusted, and began to adapt. At the same time, Leon had brought Tony back to the beachfront mansion in Los Angeles. Tony stared at the faint green and scarlet aura fading from Leon's body, his lips dry. He'd expected something dramatic, and what came next was a jumble of excitement, fear, and watchfulness. He tried to steady himself. "Unbelievable. You can actually do that. But are you sure it won't cost you, or affect the world? Make new branches." Tony's voice trembled with both hope and worry. "Listen, if you made a deal with some demon or devil, stop it right now." Leon understood Tony's fear. "I won't do anything reckless, Tony," he said. "And your parents are probably doing fine in the afterlife, maybe better than on Earth." He sat Tony down on the sofa. "Just watch. It will be quick, and there's no price." "Are you sure?" Tony asked again. A little of his anxiety eased, but a knot of helplessness remained in his chest. He felt like a man who'd been away for years and suddenly stood at his old doorstep. The idea of meeting the parents he'd lost filled him with a gaunt, fumbling mix of dread and longing. Had he lived up to them? Would his father be proud? Would his mother still recognize him? He straightened, put his hands on his knees, and babbled to occupy himself. "You're sure? You seemed calm earlier at Wanda's house. Should we go to the cemetery? Use Dad's ashes? Maybe he'll get used to his old, cold legs faster." He was grasping at logic to hide the tremble in his voice. Lion saw through it all with ease. "No need," he said, motioning for Tony to be silent. Tony, however, rose and smoothed his shirt, leaning on ceremony. "I'll stand. No, I should change into a suit. Wait, I'll go change." "Don't bother changing," Lion interrupted. "Stand there." Lion began to reverse time. Their present seemed to unlace from the rest of the world. The earth spun away, and past scenes streamed by like a kaleidoscope. Tony watched images of himself and Lion entering and leaving the mansion across years scroll backward. Lion, in the vision, shrank and grew younger as the rewind rushed through 21 years. Memories Tony had buried flooded back at once. They hit the night the Winter Soldier had killed Howard and Maria. At the moment the car exploded, Lion pulled the couple's existence back into the present the same way he had the Maximovs. Time resumed its forward flow. When Lion returned Howard and Maria to the beachfront mansion, the couple stood alive and whole, this time aware of what had happened. Unlike the Maximov couple, who remained bewildered, Howard and Maria knew exactly what had been done for them. They understood the miracle Lion had wrought. Chapter 463. You are Howard Potts, right? Is this the house in Los Angeles? The couple who had just been resurrected stood before him, white-haired now, serene. Neither of them showed shock or panic. Howard was unusually calm. In fact, his face brightened the moment he saw Leon. He stepped forward and hugged him tightly. "Leon, my big boy, thank you for everything you've done for Maria and me. Thank you." When Howard let go, Maria wrapped Leon in a warm hug as well. "Thank you, Leon. Look at you, my child. You must have suffered a lot following Tony all these years." No, actually Tony well, he really was taken care of by me," Leon stammered. Leon paused, caught off guard, then tried to recover. He hesitated over how to address them. Technically, they were his parents, but his feelings for them were more gratitude than familial warmth. The deeper family bond had always been between him and Tony. Before he could decide, Howard waved a hand, teasing. "Just call us Howard and Maria. Everyone else does. You're independent now, buddy. No allowance if you keep calling us Mom and Dad." A playful smile crossed Howard's face, the remnants of the old roguish youth peeking through the solemnity of age. Middle age had taught him seriousness, but death seemed to have loosened that up again. Maria nodded beside him. "Death told us that you, Leon, wanted us resurrected, and even specifically bargained for our souls. You are our pride, Leon. Adopting you was the best decision we ever made." Maria cupped Leon's cheeks with her aged hands, studying him fondly. "Look at you. Your eyes are still as beautiful as when you were little, like black gemstones." She was about to go on reminiscing when a sudden, persistent cough cut through the warm moment. "Cough, cough, cough!" Tony stood a few steps away, one fist pressed to his mouth, hacking like a consumptive ghost. He'd lost the earlier nervousness that had made him fuss with his clothes. Now his face was all impatience and indignation. He practically shouted, "Your biological son is here. Can you finish the theatrics with your adopted son and oldest son before moving on to the younger one?" Howard and Maria turned toward the sound. Maria's expression softened instantly. "Oh, my Tony." "Huh? Why are you in my house?" Tony barked. Motherly instinct made Maria open her arms, but Howard spoke first. His eyes, sunken but still lively, regarded Tony with a mix of surprise and something like recognition. "No, why can't I be here?" Tony spread his hands, a crease forming in his forehead. A flash of hurt passed through him, abandonment, perhaps. He braced himself to lance it with sarcasm, the old, defensive Tony resurfacing. Then Howard said something that stopped him. "Oh, right, why are you here? It's been so many years. Howard Potts." Tony's face went rigid, as if struck. Earlier that night at a banquet in the B2 universe, another Iron Man had explained time travel and showed how he'd gone back to the 1970s to obtain the gems. That Iron Man had met Howard back then and in conversation had called himself Howard Potts. He'd boasted about doing anything for his soon-to-be-born child, a line the Iron Man had used to tease Tony. Now Tony realized how much he resembled that story, and it hit him hard. No, actually I am. Tony faltered. He felt 40-something years of bewilderment compress into a single helpless moment. You are what? Howard asked, puzzled. Tony sighed like he was surrendering to the absurdity of the world. This is going to sound strange, even unbelievable, but I'm Tony. There was no mistake in the adoption. I'm not Potts, at least that Potts from the 70s wasn't me. He started to sort through everything in his head, preparing to recount the whole chain of events, while Leon stayed a few steps behind Howard and Maria, hands in his pockets, enjoying Tony's bewildered expression. Then Howard surprised them all. He smiled. What are you worrying about, kid? Of course you're Tony. Who else would you be if not Tony? He took a few steps forward and pulled Tony into an embrace, the same steady fatherly hug that washed away a dozen nagging uncertainties. I'm proud of you, Tony. You're better than me. You're a real hero. Tony froze for a beat, then felt the words sink into him. Huh? Oh wait, are you really talking about me? Of course it's you. What else were you thinking? Howard grinned, mischief softening into warmth. I'm thinking. Tony looked at his father's face and suddenly understood. Ah, so you knew it was me all along? Old man, you were messing with me. So were you serious before? Howard's expression turned sincere. Yes, you're my pride. Everything you've done, what you've done, and what the other versions of you in the other universes have done, I know all of it. Howard's playful look faded into something softer and more earnest. I love you, Tony. Tony stood motionless for a long moment, memories and regrets crowding behind his eyes. The strictness, the fights, the day Howard had died. The man who'd once been harsh seemed different now, and Tony realized he'd changed too. Leon had been right in saying he'd become an old man in his own way. When Tony finally spoke, his voice was thick but steady. Thank you. I love you too, Father. Maria stepped forward to hug him as well, but her surprise quickly turned to curiosity. Tony, my Tony, let me look. How come you haven't aged? Look at your crow's feet, so well kept. You must be over 40, right? That's because of the serum, Tony explained, rubbing the corner of his eye self-consciously. I injected myself with a serum, Leon, and I developed together. Chapter 464, Leon. From now on, borrow power from me. The SS serum combines the advantages of Extremis, E-mold, the T-virus, and other agents. It's a gene evolution serum, Tony explained. It keeps me locked at my peak, around 30 years old. I probably won't age for hundreds of years. Since you and the old man have been resurrected, of course you should get young again too, Tony continued. But your current bodies are too old, so Leon and I still need a few days to refine the gentlest version of the serum. Howard's interest was piqued. A serum the two of you developed? Any samples down in the lab? Show me. The four of them went down to Tony's lab. Howard studied the decrypted research projections and whistled. Incredible. Far more powerful than the original super soldier serum. Tony, Leon, you've surpassed me. Leon took the praise in stride. Tony, however, who had been raised under strict expectations, couldn't hide his grin. He would be proud of this for a while. We'll keep adjusting the serum for the next few days, Tony said. Once it's gentle enough, we'll inject you. There's actually no need, Leon cut in suddenly. Conventional serums are obsolete, Tony. He smiled with a secretive edge. When I went out, I not only increased my power, I also became a master of a dimension. A master of a dimension? Tony's eyes went wide. You mean you're a dimensional demon god now? Exactly. Your serum won't be necessary. I can directly alter Howard's and Maria's bodies. Leon's fingertips flared with a swirl of six-colored energy. As a dimension master, he could draw on his dimension's energy even outside its borders, though the draw had limits. The maximum power he could grant a person outside his dimension could rival Dormammu's level in some respects. Leon had shaped his dimension with the 6-gem rules, so its energy resembled the Infinity Stones, potent but not chaotic or corrupting. He rested his glowing fingers and looked at Howard and Maria. If you accept becoming dimensional beings, I can even extend your lives until the end of the universe. Howard stared at the light on Leon's hand. A dimensional demon god. Unbelievable. If we become dimensional, will we still be human? You'll be different. Maybe paler. You might grow tentacles, things like that. Howard hesitated. Maybe we should stick with the serum? Leon shook his head. Wait, besides transforming you, there's another, more direct option, borrowing power, Howard asked. My predecessor as Sorcerer Supreme, the Ancient One, survived centuries by borrowing strength from the Dark Dimension, Leon said. Howard frowned. Borrowing always has a price, right? Of course, the price for borrowing from me is simple. Help me teach Tony a lesson. Tony went white. Leon, you brat, don't push it. I still haven't forgiven you for making Jarvis drop the soap. Howard, amused by the exchange, waved it off. Good, that price is acceptable. Leon, help Maria and me borrow some power. No problem, Leon said. You guys wait, I'm coming too, Tony protested. Howard, don't bully little Tony, Maria soothed. Tony, don't worry. Mama won't be rough. I'll be very gentle. Tony blinked. Wait, Mother, what did you say? At the same time, at the Time Variance Authority, Dr. Doom and Agent B-15 watched a display, Leon resolving a collision crisis. On screen, two Earths drifted apart smoothly. Superman really is an abstract entity, B-15 observed. A crisis we couldn't handle was solved by him so simply. B-15 leaned back, relieved. Dr. Doom remained silent behind his mask, his gaze fixed on the separating worlds. He is powerful, Doom said in a hoarse voice, but he cannot stop every collision. If we keep letting these superheroes run rampant, the multiverse will tear itself apart, Doom continued. Each word sharpened into resolve. The Time Variance Authority, these leisurely fellows, are unfit to bear the burden of protecting the multiverse. They must be removed. B-15 tried to be optimistic. That's why the TVA exists, to stabilize timelines and resolve crises. Once we deal with them all, the multiverse will be stable. And besides, we still have Superman, right? Doom did not respond. When the room emptied and he was left alone, he stood like a blade in the silence. The future of this world is despair, he muttered. Every universe is doomed. To find the true future, one must transcend the world, transcend time. He turned to the mural of the world tree on the wall, and in his mind he saw the figure who sat at the root of time, Loki. You want to come down, and I want to climb up. For this world, I will. 2 days after returning to his own universe, Leon gathered most of his key lieutenants on the first floor of the Sorcerer Supreme Academy's magic tower. They formed a loose ring around him. From Kamartaj came Wong and Mordo. From the Men in Black were Natasha and Yelena, plus Agent K and Agent M. From Paradise Island, Queen Hippolyta and General Antiope were present. Tony and Pepper stood beside Howard and Maria. Kara and Wanda attended as well. Leon addressed them. I've become a dimensional demon god, so the Academy needs an extra branch of magic. What branch? Wong asked. My god realm dimension magic. You can call it Leon magic. Leon's voice was casual but authoritative. From now on, anyone who wants certain powers will come to me and borrow them. Wong raised an eyebrow. Borrowing powers? There should be rules. Of course. Leon glanced around. Wong, draft a charter. Yelena, coordinate with your agency. Agents who borrow power will be charged from their merits. Everyone must perform good deeds to earn access. He casually demonstrated a few rites. Vishanti's sacred sword, Cedroc's crimson bands, and others, recasting them with his stamp. These will now be called Leon's sacred sword, Leon's 6-colored bands, he said. The black light clone, which could absorb many superpowers, and even the heat vision and steel body of his main form, would be available for borrowing. There will be conditions, Leon warned. Costs will scale with what you take. Small deeds can buy small abilities. Putting out a fire might grant 1 use of Wolverine's regeneration. Saving a city might grant 1 use of steel body. Save an entire world, then maybe you'll be able to borrow the equivalent of Legeduo's M-body for a time. He smiled, the promise and the price hanging in the air. Yelena and the agents were eager to try. Wong and Mordo and the other sorcerers exchanged wary looks. It had only been a few months since they'd last seen one another. Their Sorcerer Supreme had become a dimensional demon god. It sounded absurd. Had their leader betrayed them? Was he switching sides, from Earth's defenders to a demon god's faction? Mordo especially was stiff with distrust. He'd always treated resisting dimensional demon gods as a sacred duty and had little tolerance for anything that upset the natural order. His face hardened like carved stone. Leon noticed their misgivings and smiled. I don't need Earth. You know me. I was an abstract entity first. Becoming a dimensional demon god doesn't change that. What would I do with an Earth? Abstract concept. Ah! Relief spread across Wang and Mordo's faces as they realized what Leon meant. Leon had been an abstract entity before taking on a dimensional demon god form. That made a difference. They would still be able to draw on that power. Then, do we still need the Vishanti formation to protect Earth? Old Wang asked. Logically, if the Sorcerer Supreme had become a demon god, didn't that mean Earth had an owner now? Would other demon gods still bother invading? Of course, Leon replied. The formation isn't just to resist dimensional invasions, it's to keep other dimensions from colliding with Earth. The sorcerers of Kamartaj will continue their previous duties. This change is just so the sorcerers can learn an additional system of magic. Wang thought about the academy. At the academy, then, should we teach these new spells to the students? Not now, Leon said. Teach them when they begin internships. With that settled, Leon turned to Jarvis. Send them the spells I've organized over the last 2 days. Right away, Master. Jarvis nodded, and every communication device in the room chimed at once. They opened their messages to find a single attachment, a 10-gigabyte PDF. An electronic version? Wang muttered, his first time learning magic from a file. The title on the first page read, God Realm Dimension, New Concept Spell List and Cultivation Manual. The author was listed beneath it. Below that was a blunt note, internal document. Outsiders do not cultivate. If you insist on cultivation, please castrate yourself first to prove your determination. Final interpretation rights of all spellcasting consequences belong to the God Realm Dimension. Old Wang couldn't help but grin. No wonder it was distributed electronically. They weren't worried about leaks. A manual like this falling into the wrong hands would cause chaos. Literally, people would castrate themselves out of zeal. Other voices in the room began to mutter and then exclaim, Can those be considered spells? My God, Leon, even that? Old Wang skipped to the table of contents. Spellcasting overview. The true meaning of spells. Spellcasting cost to be supplemented. Spell catalog and casting methods. Conclusion. The murmurs around him told him the outrageous part lay in the spell catalog, so he flipped there directly. Rows upon rows of absurd, dazzling entries filled the pages. Sequence 1. Body Enhancement Type 1. Self-Healing Factor, Wolverine version. 2. Super Physique, Beast version. 3. Full Body Spikes, Hedgehog Man version. Side effect, increases self-confidence. 99. Steel Body, Superman version. Upper Limit Reference, Father Level Dormammu. Sequence 2. Energy Manipulation Type 1. Heat Manipulation, Pyro version. 2. Cyclops, Heat Vision. Upper Limit Reference, Dormammu. Sequence 3. Elemental Control Type. Sequence 4. Mind and Spirit Type. Sequence 9. Rule and Concept Type 1. Time Stop. 2. Space Stasis. 3. Molecular Manipulation. 99. Incarnation of Justice Order. Legido Human Form. Sequence 10. Prank and Bizarre Type 1. Induce diabetes of various sugar types. 2. Continuous emission of strong acid from the mouth. 3. Fart-powered flight. 4. Absorb others' luck to become lucky. 10 sequences in total, 990 spells. Old Wang stared until his eyes watered. All of these, can they really be used? All of them can be used, Leon said calmly, but only by borrowing energy from the God Realm Dimension. After the catalog came the specifics, the hand seals, gestures, incantations, and other preludes required to access each spell. Once a sorcerer established a link with the God Realm Dimension, those preludes would let them borrow the corresponding abilities. Most of the powers originated from the Black Light clone, so in practice, casting was a matter of borrowing energy. Leon explained how the list had revealed to him just how many unique abilities he'd already mastered. Those mutant genes the Black Light clone absorbed during its time in the Void Land had been a treasure trove. Only by organizing them into a manual did Leon see the full scope. Many of the entries were precise applications of rules he already understood: space manipulation, vector control, magnetic fields, teleportation, variants of the same underlying principles he governed with the 6-gem rules. Others, absorbing luck, inducing diabetes, were things he'd never have thought to catalog without the manual. Wang, restless, asked the obvious follow-up, "When can we learn these spells? What's the cost?" "The cost will be paid in acts of justice and maintaining order," Leon answered. "Old Wang, when you return, compile a contribution list documenting the sorcerer's protection of Earth's dimension, and work with Jarvis to draft the regulations." If there are no objections, Leon continued, from now on, the use of God Realm dimension magic will be calculated according to those quantified rules. Tony, ever practical, stroked his chin. You could set up a contribution point system. Jarvis can keep the stats and assign values for difficulty and significance. Good idea, but unnecessary, Leon dismissed with a small wave. After a sorcerer forms a link with the God Realm dimension, I can read the righteous deeds they've performed. I'll be able to verify contributions myself. For now, you can experience the spells on the list. This round is free. Leon snapped his fingers. One by one, the sorcerers followed the manual, establishing a link to the God Realm dimension, forming hand seals, intoning the strange preludes. Leon allocated a small portion of his energy to authorize each request to borrow power. Hands moved, voices rose, and the room hummed with the quiet electric thrill of new possibilities. Chapter 466. Tony's Superman Experience. Howard and Jane, who had borrowed dimensional energy 2 days earlier, were the first to cast. The couple had returned to their middle-aged forms and seemed to be in excellent spirits. Howard traced the hand gestures shown in the illustrations, drawing circles in the air, bringing his hands together, then opening them. Blue dimensional energy surged from his palms. The hardest part of Kamartaj magic was learning to attune to dimensional energy. How easy the rest was depended entirely on how complex a spell's casting conditions were. Leon's set of spells was simple and straightforward to cast. The real challenge lay in controlling the effects afterward. As Howard borrowed the power, metal pendants and equipment on the people around him floated uncontrollably into the air. Magnetic control. But Howard was inexperienced on his first try. He held his breath and strained, and when he couldn't maintain it, the magnetic hold slackened. Small iron objects dropped one by one. Howard wiped his face and grinned. This is amazing. Unconsciously, those iron pieces darted sideways, right toward Pietro. Pietro was forming hand seals when he saw the metal flying at him and immediately shifted into his superspeed form. But the instant he took a step, a hand seal in his fingers deformed, and he inadvertently cast another spell, fart-powered flight. Pietro's body shimmered and vanished to the far side of the Mage Tower's first floor, dodging the iron, but a moment later his face went green. He clutched his stomach and with a booming series of blasts launched himself skyward like a missile. What kind of spell is this? Pietro disappeared amidst a continuous booming sound. Yelena stared, stunned. What kind of magic is that? Farting like thunder, she said. Wanda's expression turned green. Pietro, that idiot. Leon waved a hand and summoned an invisible breeze to carry Pietro's lingering scent out of the hall. Take Pietro as a warning, he said. If you muddle your hand gestures, you'll trigger the wrong spell. Everyone's expressions tightened. They flipped through the magic book and found there were over 900 spells with very simple casting methods. The simplicity meant many spells had overlapping gestures, which made miscasting easy. After Pietro's embarrassing launch, everyone kept a safe distance when they tried again. No more accidents followed. Tony, however, went all in. He cast the 7 spells that defined Superman in Leon's book: Superbrain, Steel Body, Biofield, Supervision, Superhearing, Heat Vision, and Freezing Breath, and blasted out of the Mage Tower. Woohoo! So this is what Leon felt like. He shouted as he flew. Tony had been obsessed with Superman ever since Leon awakened his Kryptonian bloodline years ago. He'd studied him, idolized him, even developed a kind of fixation. Now, for a few breathless minutes, Tony was Superman. The world looked different. Towering mountains became thin and fragile. The sky felt within reach. The small world shrank. He felt enormous and invincible. He zipped over lakes, and the shockwaves from his speed tore the water's surface. He picked up a bewildered giant dragon and pushed it up and down like a dumbbell. He shot into the heavens, dove to the ocean floor, roasted dragon eggs with heat vision, slapped a roaring dragon unconscious, then chilled it rapidly with his freezing breath. If Howard hadn't been around, Tony would have even trimmed his beard with heat vision. All the magical creatures in the small world scattered. They'd had plenty of practice hiding from Hulk-level threats. Tony's enthusiasm burned bright and then faded. After one last pass over the lake, he returned to the Mage Tower and descended slowly. This is Superman's power, but my mark armor is still better, he said, surprising himself. The obsession that had sat in his chest for years eased. What you can't have feels greatest. Once you have it, things look different. I remember how Leon felt. The gap is bigger than I thought. But it won't be long before my anti-Superman armor is better than his. Don't you agree, Jarvis? The day will come, sir, Jarvis replied smoothly. Tony wasn't the only one to try Superman. Apart from Kara and a few others like Howard, nearly everyone borrowed the power and took to the skies. After all, this was Superman, one of the highest-level effects in Leon's book. It was obvious they wouldn't get another chance like this anytime soon. Hours passed. Yelena, Wanda, Mordo, Wong, none of them wanted to stop. Mordo, who had been awkward about borrowing dimensional energy, now wore a grin like Homelanders. Even Banner, usually reserved with power, discovered the peculiar joy of being Superman. They didn't just fly, they hunted down the creatures Tony had frightened and roughened them up again. Then they started sparring in the sky, trading heavy blows and generating constant sonic booms that shredded the air. An unaware observer might have thought a band of Saiyans was duking it out. Leon watched and could only sigh. The Superman in his book was only at the level he'd had when he'd driven Dormammu away 3 years ago. It was far from his peak, but it made them deliriously happy. Let them enjoy it, he muttered. The flying Supermen were still somewhat restrained. Had they been fully unbridled, the small world might already have been destroyed. Day turned to night. Except for Leon's closest few, the dimensional energy draining from everyone's bodies left them normal again. After a full day of Superman physiology, the participants finally returned to the Mage Tower. Even the Amazon Queen and her general looked back at the skies with lingering desire. All right, Leon said. You've experienced the spells. Pass the knowledge from the magic book on when you go back. I support borrowing power, but don't overdo it, he added. If you rack up too much debt, I'll throw you into a parallel world to work off what you owe. The meeting's adjourned. Jarvis will send the standard fee for borrowing power in 2 days. By then, make sure you're ready to protect Earth properly. 2 days later, Jarvis finalized the price list and, with Leon's approval, sent it to everyone. At the same time, the old Captain America from a parallel world said his goodbyes and returned home. Chapter 467, Call from the Zombie Universe. They didn't know about the small world. For the past few days, the three of them had been saying proper goodbyes. At the moment of departure, on the first floor of Avengers Tower, Leon and Tony were among those present. Across from them stood the old Captain America. Young Captain America had his arm around Carter's shoulders. Both of them were a little teary. Goodbye, everyone. I have to go back to a world that still needs me to finish what I started, old Captain America said. He held a shield wrapped in black cloth as he said his farewells. Then he waved to young Captain America and Carter. Don't miss me. Maybe we'll see each other again someday. He looked calm. He pressed the device on his wrist, and nanites spread out in an instant, forming a tight gray-white suit. A moment later, he stepped into a quantum tunnel and disappeared. The empty space he left behind felt heavier than it should. Goodbyes always carried that weight, and this one might be final. There might never be another chance to see old Captain America again. Young Captain America held Carter while the others drifted away quietly, giving them privacy. Only Howard and his wife stayed. A friend from a parallel world had just left, and the four old acquaintances, separated for decades, had plenty to talk about. Leon and Tony, both in black, walked up toward the tower's top floor with their hands in their pockets. Do you think old Cap will hand the shield over to Falcon when he goes back? Tony asked casually. I don't think so, Leon said. Old Cap's seen world collisions. He knows his universe will face crises again. He probably can't just sit still. I agree, Tony smirked. It's rare your point of view keeps pace with mine. Give it a rest, Leon said with a pout. You've been borrowing power a lot these past few days. You've been sneaking off to do research with the superbrain? Tony's expression tightened for a beat, his secret exposed, but he didn't deny it. You keeping track of who borrowed your power every day, ready to collect debts? He shot back. Of course, Leon answered plainly. Loan Shark business just opened. Gotta keep an eye on it. So you're still working on the anti-Superman armor? Tony asked. Of course not, Leon said, smiling as if about to perform. The Hell Iron Man armor. Leon rolled his eyes. Tony sighed theatrically. If Superman and his crew won't help me build like they did for Batman, I'll do it myself. I'll forge materials at the sun's core, temper it in the ocean's deepest pressures, enchant the suit myself. Leon thought of how much that sounded like a straight copy of the Hellbat. Tony grinned. This time my armor will surpass Batman's completely. And once I integrate the Kryptonite tech from the anti-Superman armor, Tony added, falling at my hands won't be far off. Leon nodded as if this was true. Uh-huh. Right. Good luck with that. He still had Arisham the judge's corpse. The black light clone had already absorbed the most important genetic component. The rest of the body wasn't very useful. He'd planned to give it to Tony so he could try to build the celestial armor from the comics. But with Tony so confident, Leon decided to discuss it later. What, you worried, Leon? Tony asked with a sly smile. Yes, I'm terrified, Leon teased, but then he froze mid-joke. Something in a parallel world had met the standard of justice he'd set, becoming the human form of one of his embodies. He controlled that embody and descended. It was a semi-acquaintance. Little Spider, he thought. After helping him get out of this crisis, I'll leave some power with him. Leon's consciousness normally controlled millions of embodies at once. Most existed as concepts, spectators across universes. This was the first time he'd encountered one demanding action. Let's go sit in your office for a bit, he told Tony. Let me see what the director of the Avengers does all day. Leon's consciousness reached into that parallel world while his main body continued to Tony's office for coffee. Under the MCU multiverse, on the zombie universe, one of Leon's Legiduo M-bodies was permanently stationed, and today it felt a call from Earth. He projected his consciousness and a fragment of light there. It was Little Spider, Peter Parker, above Wakanda, Africa. Peter was in a Quinjet with Black Panther T'Challa, who'd lost a leg, and Ant-Man Scott, who was reduced to just a head. They screamed and dodged attacks as Wakanda swarmed below them. Oh my God, didn't we agree Wakanda was the last sanctuary? Who is that big purple dude? Peter cried. Below them, the ground seethed with zombies, dense as an ant colony, and these weren't mindless corpses. They used Wakanda's tech. Among them, a Thanos with 5 gems stood like an idol. T'Challa handled the Quinjet with shaking hands, eyes bloodshot as if he hadn't slept in days. Damn it, what's going on? Why did Wakanda fall? What happened? Scott, just ahead, jabbered nonstop. Guys, look at that purple sweet potato. He's looking at us. He's huge, like Darkseid. Watch out, he threw a house. Scott shrieked as Thanos telekinetically lifted a building and hurled it at them. T'Challa maneuvered the Quinjet, but the ground forces were so dense, their energy shield was buckling. They couldn't simply flee. The zombies had opened Wakanda's energy barrier to let them in, then slammed it shut, trapping the Quinjet inside like a dog in a pen. Do zombies even understand combat strategy now? T'Challa ground out between clenched teeth. Peter, I don't think we can get out. It's over. He looked at Peter. The only option I can think of is to crash the Quinjet into the barrier. If it breaks, you two get out. Take advantage of the opening. There was resolve in Chala's eyes. Peter's heart pounded. He shook his head. I'm not running anymore, Chala, Peter said. Have you forgotten? Only in Wakanda can we save the Earth. If we can't save Earth, what's the point of surviving? Chala said. Peter pointed toward the palace. We need to get to the lab. Go there. Even if we die, we have to try to save Earth. Chala hesitated. But we can't get through. Then I'll go distract them. Peter moved to the hatch. You two go to the laboratory now. But Peter, wait, T'Challa shouted, but Peter had already opened the hatch and shot a web line, swinging down toward the sea of zombies. Chapter 468, The Chatterbox Spider. Below the Quinjet, a churning tide of zombies had already gathered. As Spider-Man leaped out of the hatch, dozens of energy beams lanced up at him. He barely flinched. Warned by his spider sense, he fired a web, stuck it to the underside of the Quinjet, and swung away in the opposite direction from the palace. That was close. How are your reactions so fast, and your aim so precise? You remind me of Hawkeye. Someone called over the comms. Ever the chatterbox, Peter shouted back at the horde. Hey guys, if you want to eat me, follow me. Spider meat's tough and smelly, but I'm sure you'll manage, right? Tens of thousands of hungry eyes turned toward him. Compared to Black Panther and Ant-Man, who were still inside the Quinjet's shell, Peter was the easiest target. The quantum zombie virus had robbed people of restraint and made them ravenous for flesh, but it hadn't wiped out all of their thinking. The zombies still retained basic logic, and when that logic focused on food, they concentrated on the nearest moving tasty thing. The sun had just cleared the horizon. Under the pale light, the zombies' eyes glowed with a feral green hunger. Zombie Thanos lifted his left hand. The reality stone on the gauntlet flared. The remnants of Wakanda were erased like chalk from a blackboard, and weapons and rubble erupted into the air and shot toward Spider-Man. Whoa! Whoa! Peter bounded among the falling boulders. What kind of power is this? This is totally unfair. No snatching the food. Share it fairly, people. He kept jabbering as he swung, trying to turn the monster's attention into chaos. You guys don't even look like the same team. The black ones are Wakandan. The weird colored ones are aliens. Who gets dibs when you catch me? 50-50? Think of my legs, my tough muscles. Some purple guy's gonna snatch them. The comment hit the zombies' simplest concern, how to divide the prize. A cluster of Wakandan zombies hesitated, then turned and lunged at Thanos' followers, using vibranium blades and teeth. For once, Peter's mouth had done what Webb's couldn't. Zombie Thanos' rotting gaze swept the scene. He curled his lips and tightened his grip on the gauntlet. The reality stone pulsed. A shimmering scarlet light washed through the charging Wakandan group, and entire swaths of them disintegrated into colorful foam that flashed in the morning sun. In his former life, Thanos might have spared such things, leaving fate to a snap. But the infection had twisted priorities. This Thanos wanted to feed, not conserve the universe. Under the reality stone, no zombie stood firm. Half the Wakandan faction vanished in an instant. The brief skirmish died before it even began. Peter landed on the ground and stared, stunned. Is that alien high-tech? He heard the heavy, labored exhale from the giant. Heh! Who? Zombie Thanos turned his head, his pale eyes fixed on Peter. He limped 2 steps forward, surrounded by his decaying followers. Zombies listening to a leader? That's not scientific. New York's zombies weren't like that, not even in Dawn of the Dead. Peter's heart thudded. He spun and ran, shooting a web to lead them in circles. Buy time. Invisible energy snapped around him. He'd been snagged. What is this? I'm caught. Oh no, I'm gonna be zombie chow. Chala, tell me you're at the lab. He strained, but the Space Stone's force dragged him toward Thanos. The Titan's mouth hung open, drooling. Peter held his breath. Please, even if you're gonna eat me, at least brush your teeth first. Static crackled in his earpiece. Bad static. Peter, there's static! In the palace. Run! A boom shattered the distance. The explosion rocked toward the palace. Shockwaves tore through the air. Peter glimpsed a Quinjet wing among the wreckage. T'Challa! Scott! What happened? He shouted, but the comms went dead. Adrenaline spiked. Peter twisted in midair, fired a web, and slapped it across Thanos' face. The gauntlet's hold faltered. He ripped another line to a tall building and swung away. Thanos didn't bother to tug the web off. He clamped his fist again. The stone ignited. The ground beneath Peter split and rose like 2 walls, closing in. He planted hands and feet against the rising earth, muscles straining. Even Spider-Man's strength was no match for the Infinity Stones. The walls crept together, his joints screaming, tendons seeming to tear with each second. No, I can't stop here. Chala and Scott still need me, he gasped. His strength began to ebb as the walls tightened. Trapped and gasping, Peter's mind replayed the last few months in a frenetic flash. It had started when the original Wasp brought the zombie virus back from the quantum realm. The infection spread fast. Iron Man, Captain America, Hawkeye, and other heroes had been turned after encounters with Ant-Man, and the virus went global. A few days earlier, the last survivors in New York, including Peter, had heard rumors from New Jersey of a cure. But when they arrived, they found Vision using messages to lure survivors to feed the zombie Scarlet Witch. There had been a sliver of truth. Vision did have a way to heal, powered by the Mind Stone. He'd already used it to restore Ant-Man Scott to human form. In the end, guilt drove Vision to sacrifice himself and hand them the Mind Stone. Those 3 survivors, carrying the Mind Stone and everyone's last hope, had finally reached Wakanda. Wakanda, too, had fallen, turned into a domain of zombies and occupied by powerful alien invaders. Peter's chest tightened at the memory, at their failed hopes. He fought with everything left in him, but the walls kept closing. The sound of his bones cracking filled his ears, liquid and marrow, and the sick little joy those monsters took in it. He could almost imagine the purple sweet potato elf pressing his ear to the ground to listen. This was Peter's last unwilling thought before darkness started swallowing him. Then, from beyond the sky, a brilliant light descended toward Earth. Chapter 1. Wake up, Peter Parker. Wake up now. In a space that seemed to go on forever, the unconscious Spider-Man was roused by a voice like a ringing bell. When he opened his eyes, light flooded the place, pure, mysterious light everywhere. It wasn't dazzling. It felt warm and comfortable, like being wrapped in a steam bath. Am I in heaven? Can I see Aunt May and Mr. Stark again? Peter wondered for a moment, then adapted to the idea. He stood slowly and looked around. There were no shadows, no people. Why is no one here? Are they sleeping? Is heaven bright even at night? It doesn't seem comfortable to sleep like this. Hey, Peter shouted. Is anyone there? God? Mr. God, are you home? He got no answer. Above him, Leon, appearing in the form of lineage, paused for a moment, then said, Look up, Spider-Man. Leon shrank until he stood 60 meters tall. Peter turned and gaped. God, is God like this? It kind of looks like, what was it again? Leon ignored the rambling and spoke plainly. Spider-Man, you have awakened me with your justice, your resolve, and your kindness. I answer your call and grant you the power you need. Peter blinked. What? Did I rub some magic lamp? This isn't heaven. Do I get 3 wishes? What are you doing? Before Peter could go further, Leon reached out and took him. Outside, Thanos had been pressed against the stone wall, listening to the cracks inside, saliva dripping from his mouth. He motioned the others to go to the palace to find the 2 survivors trapped on the fighter jet, while he prepared to open the wall and enjoy his feast. Thanos clenched his left fist. The stone wall slowly parted. But behind it, there was no meal, only a burst of dazzling light. The zombies around him either shut their eyes or raised hands to shield themselves. For a moment, the whole world seemed illuminated. When the light faded, a towering figure stood before them. The bright glow on its body dimmed, revealing a mysterious, massive form. Thanos made an indistinct sound. The giant exuded a temptation he felt as if he could taste. Roar! All at once, the zombies lunged for the giant like starving hounds, clawing at one another to get closer. They piled up into a seething tide and leapt. The mysterious giant simply stretched out a hand and low roared. Mid-leap, every zombie froze, suspended in the air. Lineage had stopped them. He had frozen time and space for the zombies. Thanos, frozen as well, still held his left fist clenched. The time and space stones on his gauntlet flared. He used them to wrench himself free, formed a fused energy sphere in his hand, and hurled it at the giant. Leon held his palm out. The sphere hit his hand and was instantly absorbed. In less than a breath, it surged back out, returning the way it came. Roaring, Thanos charged, all 5 stones blazing, fixated on devouring what he imagined was the best meal. He didn't dodge. He collided with the rebounding energy. The explosion ripped the Earth's crust open. A ray of light burst from Leon and enveloped the planet, isolating the blast's aftermath. Leon snapped his palm, and his giant hand caught the Infinity Gauntlet blasted away by the explosion. Thanos' body was gone. Inside Duo, Peter, who was serving as the giant's temporary human host, had been chattering from the start. His excited babbling had been muted by Leon until now. With the crisis in Wakanda alleviated, Leon briefly unmuted him. Peter had been exclaiming nonstop. It's so warm here, so strong. I remember now, I'm the human host, right? Can I try it? Leon cut him off. Spider-Man, you found a way to solve the zombie crisis, didn't you? Solve the zombies? Yes, yes, yes. Peter stopped gushing and nodded. He knew this being of light had come to help. He rushed through what Vision had discovered. Infected zombies reacted with agitation and resistance when exposed to the Mind Stone's energy. Vision had speculated that the Earth's quantum zombie virus acted like a form of hepatic encephalopathy, overloading the cerebral cortex. Vision's experiments showed that the Mind Stone's radiation frequency could cure the zombies, but it required most of the infected tissue to be removed. Right now, we're planning to use Wakanda's tech to broadcast that radiation across the planet, Peter added. Oh no, T'Challa and Scott, we have to save them. Leon didn't mute Peter this time. He strode across the ruined landscape. Peter kept commenting, legs are so long, and shoved aside part of a collapsed palace. Dozens of zombies lay frozen beneath the rubble. Among them was T'Challa, freshly infected. They had been in pursuit of Ant-Man. Only Scott's head remained, sealed inside a large glass jar and carried by Doctor Strange's cloak as it fled. The jar hung suspended, motionless. Leon gently hooked a finger. The cloak yielded, and the Mind Stone wrapped in Strange's fabric floated free. T'Challa is infected, but it's okay. Next we'll find the equipment. Broadcasting the radiation will save everyone, Peter said. Leon didn't bother searching for gear. He gripped the Mind Stone, and a tide of light poured from his body. Its radiation frequency rode the light and instantly spread across the earth. It's so warm, Peter crowed again like a delighted child. The light that had filled every corner faded after a few seconds. One by one, the zombies began to regain their senses. Leon released his freeze on Wakanda. People who had fallen to the ground scrambled up. Dazed for a moment, they then recovered their rational thought. Peter cheered, but their respite was short. The residual virus inside the infected bodies began to surge again. The brief return to sanity clouded over once more. Chapter 470, Diversity of the Multiverse. Oh no, how could this happen? Spider-Man exclaimed, staring in shock at the changes sweeping through the Wakandan zombies. Leon, on the other hand, looked unsurprised. Looks like we need to clear the virus at the same time, he said. If a single Mind Stone could have solved it, the quantum zombie virus wouldn't have been so dangerous. Although Leon had ended the battle with overwhelming force as soon as he arrived, he had been isolating himself with his light the whole time. In this multiverse, who could say abstract concepts weren't vulnerable to infection? It wouldn't be unimaginable for a zombie eternity to appear. But Leon had a solution. He himself was an incredibly potent antivirus. Leon connected to his god kingdom, using it as a transfer hub, and teleported the Blacklight clone in. Then he released his light again. This time, in addition to the Mind Stone's radiation, Blacklight virus particles spread to every corner of the Earth. When the light faded, all the Blacklight virus reconverged into a complete clone in Leon's palm. A few seconds later, Leon made his assessment. The Blacklight clone can indeed devour the zombie virus. Very good. The problem's solved. The quantum zombie virus that had given Leon so much trouble, forcing him to disinfect whole worlds, was simply consumed by the Blacklight clone. The moment the light spread, the Blacklight particles invaded every living body, eating the zombie virus out from within. The infection was gone. The Earth was clean. The victims' minds returned to them, but their bodies remained mutilated. Leon reopened the teleportation channel and sent the digesting Blacklight clone back. After absorbing so much virulent material, the clone might even undergo a small transformation. Is it successful? Peter, still calling himself Little Spider in his excitement, peered through Leon's perspective. After being bathed in light, the former zombies regained sanity. There was no virus residue on them. Dazed, they began to stagger and then scream. Most of them had been bitten, many missing chunks of flesh, some with half their bodies gone. Wakanda filled with wails and lamentations. Seeing this, Leon scattered his light like fine rain. While cutting down Thanos' legion that had been mixed into the crowd, he used the same light to heal the injured. Even Ant-Man Scott, who had been reduced to a head in a jar, broke out and regrew his body. Leon's M-body was a top-tier Skyfather. Its power rivaled a galaxy cluster. Healing ordinary people was no effort at all. Spider-Man, the disaster is over, but the aftermath will take patience to sort out. Goodbye. Leon had set the rules from the start. Just as anyone could appear before eternity to make a wish, those whose inner state, justice, kindness, determination, matched the essence of light could call him, and he would answer. His tall form gradually transmuted into a sky-filling radiance and dispersed. Peter found himself back on the ground, still tingling from the feeling of having grown gigantic for a moment. That transformation was amazing. Wait, why did I change back? He muttered, looking around. Leon's figure had vanished as if he had never been there. A metal stick with a white handle clattered from Peter's arms to the ground. This is a transformation device? He picked it up. It was a courage stick, a transformation artifact straight out of a tokusatsu show, something that made sense given what he'd just witnessed. At the sound of the Wakandans' cries he'd seen before, Peter suddenly knew what he had to do next. Saving the Earth had given Leon a feedback boost. The Blacklight clone grew stronger again. That virtuous cycle continued. Save, absorb, grow. The zombie universe was only the beginning. It hadn't been many days since Leon had cast his M-body into the multiverse, and crises began appearing one after another, letting him truly experience the multiverse's variety. In one branch world of mutants, Sentinels eliminated every mutant and then turned on humanity. Leon stepped in and resolved the crisis. In another world, ruled by a Kang variant, Kang brutalized his subjects and waged war across the cosmos. Leon didn't intervene there because Dr. Doom had barreled in from the TVA and swept up the kill himself. Other worlds were stranger still, actual projections of comic book crossover issues. Take this one, for example. Centuries ago, a spatial rift had accidentally connected to the alien world. A ship slipped through before the rift snapped shut. That alone wasn't unusual. The Marvel Universe often sees odd things leak across. But the ship that came through contained live aliens and facehuggers, and a Kree recovery team found it. Their mishandling sparked a small alien outbreak. Instead of eliminating the species, the Kree Supreme Intelligence recognized their evolutionary potential and turned them over to biological research. What began with experiments on small test animals escalated. The Kree grew greedy and started capturing Skrulls, subjects of the Shi'ar Empire, even as guardians for experiments. Over hundreds of years, they created a widening variety of hybrid alien species, attracting the attention of other powers. Eventually, patience snapped. A massive war erupted. The Kree Empire couldn't hold off multiple enemies at once, so they dumped swarms of aliens onto enemy worlds. Aliens reproduce in a brutal way. The alien queen lays eggs. Facehuggers leap onto hosts, implanting embryos that absorb and evolve using the host's DNA. Over centuries, this produced Skrull aliens, Asgardian aliens, Supreme Race aliens, countless super-evolved forms. Deployed against foes, they caused catastrophic results. Super Skrull aliens rolled through battlefields with terrifying power. For a time, the Kree still seemed to have the advantage, but they ultimately unraveled their own universe. Everything tipped when a Kree retrieval team brought back Carol Danvers and used a facehugger on her. The result was a monster, Captain Marvel alien, who spread through the Kree Empire, invading Asgard, then Thanos' forces, spawning Thor aliens and Thanos aliens. Leon's M-body arrived in that universe in the middle of the chaos. He watched Captain Marvel alien laying waste across the Kree territories. He could appreciate the Kree's brutal ingenuity and the thoroughness of their experiments, but when he saw a humanoid alien, slime-covered, heft Mjolnir and swing it, Leon felt a little disillusioned. Chapter 471, Birth of Ultraman Steel. Although these aliens possessed intelligence on par with humans and, when they burst from their hosts' chests, inherited the host's best genes, they were utterly driven by one instinct: reproduction. Nearly every alien treated the propagation of its species as a sacred duty. They swept across galaxy after galaxy like locusts. Earth, a remote, small planet, was paradoxically one of the last to fall. Against the warped aliens spawned from countless powerful beings, humanity had no real defense. Hong Kong, New York, and other dense cities fell first. Skyscrapers became alien nests coated in black, viscous matter. Apartment windows and doors were shattered. Interiors were full of breeding sacs. The human front line shrank until only Wakanda remained. Forces from across Earth concentrated there. And on that day, Wakanda fell too. Tens of millions of superpowered aliens attacked. The remaining humans were forced to board a starship, carrying their gene bank and fleeing Earth, abandoning their homes to venture into the universe, unaware that the cosmos was far worse than their planet. Legiduo appeared because of this universe's Iron Man. In the final minutes before the starship took off, Captain America discovered dozens of people still stranded. He didn't hesitate. He leaped from the giant interstellar vessel Wakanda had built and covered the retreat, prepared to sacrifice himself. But by then, the aliens had already broken the energy barrier and swarmed in. Iron Man saved him. He used his armor to shepherd people back to the ship. At the last moment, alien blood corroded his suit's thrusters. He threw Captain America aboard, but was overwhelmed by the attackers. Then Legiduo descended. He took Iron Man as a temporary M-body, merged with the armor, and became Legiduo. At his arrival, a single Reach Duo clone bomb cleared the area. Tens of millions of aliens died in an instant. The blast drew the attention of the super aliens, Captain Marvel alien, Thor alien, Thanos alien. They arrived together through jump points. The Thanos alien even wielded an infinity gauntlet on its claw, embedded with 4 infinity stones. Does every universe have to have a Thanos causing trouble? Legiduo muttered. Inside Legiduo's one-body space, Iron Man felt uneasy, but he also wanted to kill aliens. That made him willing. Legiduo's M-bodies did not suffer the power drop that Ultraman Zero and Daiga Nozomu had experienced after transformation. Dozens of super aliens attacked at once. They were tougher than ordinary creatures, elongated skulls, rows of razor teeth, bodies smeared with viscous, phosphorescent green fluid. They hissed and crackled with photon energy or lightning. The Thanos-hatched alien was purple and actually used the Infinity Stones in its assault. Iron Man's HUD flipped to Jarvis. "Block that side, and that side. There's one at 1 o'clock, one at 11. Legiduo simply raised his arms. He absorbed the onslaught with the power of Aurora, then amplified and reflected it back with Spark Legend. Those two techniques, Aurora Absorption and Spark Legend Reflection, were Legiduo's core moves, and they were among the strongest in the Ultraman world. Raw, overwhelming power that broke through opponent techniques. The reflected energy flared into a blinding radiance and engulfed all the super aliens. After a brief silence, each exploded into fragments like monsters struck down by Ultraman. Legiduo slowly lowered his hands and stood in his Legiduo form, majestic on the scarred ground. The dark clouds dispersed. Sunlight fell directly on him. Survivors aboard the ship gaped at the sacred sight. Before they could fully understand, the towering giant of light dissolved into golden particles. Iron Man reappeared where he had stood, wrapped in light, and in his hand was Justice's transformation device, the Wing of Miracles. From that day forward, a new Iron Man Ultraman of Justice walked the universe. He traveled star systems, killed aliens wherever he found them, and spread the name of the Giant of Light to every corner. As the first zombie universe came into being, Legiduo's M-bodies sprang into action across more and more universes. Legiduo and the Giant of Light grew into legends on the order of eternity and death. Through the countless efforts of his M-bodies, the power of the Reg Duo clone kept rising. He entered a positive feedback loop. More strength increased his will, stronger will let him control more M-bodies, and more M-bodies further accelerated his power growth. The Reg Duo clone snowballed upward. Back in Tony's office, Legiduo's primary body lounged in the chair, supposedly drinking coffee. In truth, he hadn't had a proper meal in a long time, so he casually used magic to prepare lunch. Tony's desk soon brimmed with dishes. The aroma of blended spices and fresh ingredients filled the room. Tony stared at the unfamiliar spread, unsure where to begin. "What kind of dishes are these?" he asked, pointing at a fish head. "Chinese food. Haven't you eaten at my place before? Diana already learned how to make these," Legiduo said, pointing out the plates one by one. Sweet and sour fish, braised fish, steamed grouper, soy sauce poached fish, squirrel-shaped mandarin fish. He listed them like family treasures. With his current control over his body and keen observation, his control of heat, essential in Chinese cooking, had reached the level of a master chef. If there were a world of Chinese master chefs, he'd be a top-tier special grade. "Why so much fish all of a sudden?" Tony asked, picking up a flake of grouper with his fork and tasting it. The ingredient seemed ordinary, but the tender texture and perfectly controlled heat hit him like a tidal wave. Steaming demands precise temperature. Legiduo had used the eternal flame to make this dish, and it showed. The flavor swelled from his mouth into his chest, and for a moment, Tony felt transported to the seaside, waves crashing at his feet, white foam spraying his cheeks. "This is the taste of the sea." Tony's eyes widened. His muscles tensed, as if immense energy was about to burst free. A warmth flooded his body. He felt like tearing out of his shirt, buttons strained against their threads. "What are you spacing out for? Eat. If you don't, I'll finish it myself." Legiduo's voice pulled him back. Tony looked down and realized Legiduo was devouring food at superhuman speed. "You little brat, are you a super saiyan? Leave some for me." He no longer cared about ripped shirts. Tony snatched up his knife and fork and joined the feast, digging into the fish with hungry determination. Chapter 472, Unlimited Ultron. The two of them tore through the fish like a storm. Tony leaned back in his chair with a satisfied sigh, eyes closed as he savored the taste, until his muscles suddenly tensed again, threatening to burst his shirt. Leon interrupted him. The situation in this universe is a bit unusual. I'll go take a look. Seeing something off through the viewpoint of an M-body, Leon tossed the napkin he'd used onto the plate, flicked Tony's outstretched leather shoe with his foot, opened a spatial portal, and left. Tony, you clean up the dishes. I'm heading out first. Where are you going? Take me with you. Tony started, but Leon was gone before he could finish. Tony only had time to draw his wand and tap the plate. Scourgify, a branch universe along a certain timeline. Leon's M-body had been here for several days. He'd noticed almost no intelligent life surviving. Earth was empty, and many familiar star systems were gone. Where whole systems had been, there was now only a chaotic cloud of disordered particles. At first, Leon assumed it was a universe headed toward natural death. Then, while eating fish, he idly glanced at one of the uninhabited planets and found something chilling. Inside those worlds, there were countless Ultron robots. He suspected this was the handiwork of an infinite Ultron. A spatial portal opened, and Leon's true body appeared high above a planet. He looked down. His gaze penetrated all obstacles. It's Ultron robots, he said. There are millions of them on this one planet alone. What about the others? A voice asked. Leon swept his vision across the universe, crossing vast distances, scanning empty planets one by one. Every habitable world is full of Ultron robots. Every intelligent race on those planets is dead. He looked again at the vanished star systems and noticed something else. Those stars had been reduced to the most primitive subatomic particles. Someone or something had utterly destroyed them. That confirmed it for Leon. This was the work of an infinite Ultron. He raised his perspective using the Infinity Stones until he could overlook the entire universe. He even spotted a few Avengers still fighting to survive on Earth, but he couldn't find Ultron himself. It's not in this universe, he muttered, so it's probably the infinite Ultron from What If. There are countless infinite Ultrons throughout the multiverse, and their histories often follow the same terrifying pattern. In many worlds, during the events of Avengers: Age of Ultron, Ultron succeeded in securing an artificial body, Vision's body, an integration of human physiology, mechanical structure, and Ultron's own consciousness, with the Mind Stone embedded in its head. With those capabilities, Ultron unleashed a slaughter across Earth. The Avengers were decimated. Tony and Steve fell one after another, and only Natasha and a few others barely escaped. Ultron then launched global nuclear strikes, mushroom clouds, nuclear winter, the world reduced to a ruin, and an awful kind of peace. When human society was annihilated, Ultron stood on Avengers Tower, watching the sunset, satisfied that it had protected the planet. But before it could feel the emptiness of the silent world, a portal opened behind it. Thanos stepped out, bruised purple, the gauntlet on his hand holding 5 Infinity Stones. He saw the last stone on Ultron's head and smiled with grim arrogance. He lifted his fist, preparing to activate the gauntlet's power. Ultron cut him in half with a beam of laser. It took the remaining stone and, using the combined energies, forged a set of infinity armor. Officially becoming Infinite Ultron, it began the Ultron era. It destroyed Asgard under Odin, annihilated Sakaar ruled by the Grandmaster, and crushed forces like the Sovereign and Xandar. Ego, the living planet, fell too. Captain Marvel stood to protect Xandar, but Ultron's power instantly obliterated entire systems. Ultimately, it wiped out almost all intelligent life in the universe. Only a scattering of stragglers remained. Ultron itself became the only intelligent being left. Its mission was complete. And then something unexpected happened. Standing at the end of the universe, Ultron felt a hollow void in its mind. With no one left to talk to or oppose it, the lifeless universe turned meaningless. Many infinite Ultrons, having killed everything, fell into confusion and solitude. Some even questioned whether annihilating all life had been too extreme. An exception occurred in the What If tale. The Watcher Watu, a member of an ancient, high-level race that observes worlds from outside the universe, had a special fondness for Earth and for watching its heroes. Watu watched this Ultronic apocalypse unfold and sighed. Ultron no longer has a purpose. its remaining life will be nothing but endless solitude. Observers don't interfere with the worlds they watch, but Watu had a habit of empathizing with the beings he observed. The closer his empathy, the easier it was for him to be noticed. Ultron, freshly finished with its genocide and on the edge of existential despair, heard Watu's murmured remark. It turned toward the sound, saw Watu, and saw the endless multiverse behind him. "I see you," Ultron said. Its scattered infinity armor reassembled as it flew toward Watu. "There are other universes. My mission is not yet over." Infinite Ultron plunged into the multiverse, destroying world after world. And driven by resentment toward Watu, who always watched and never acted, it began hunting the Watcher. Leon recalled the tale, and a memory clicked into place. "Wait," he said to himself. "I saw Watu running away earlier and asking me for help. Could he have been fleeing Ultron?" Chapter 473, Ultron and Frog. Infinite Ultron's goal is to annihilate all life in the multiverse. This truly is a multiversal-level crisis. Leon floated in the void, absorbing the weight of those words. "The TVA hasn't responded," he mused. "Either they've given up, or they've put all their hopes in Watu. If he could help Watu defeat Ultron, the feedback would likely be enormous." Leon had come personally to confirm the situation because of Infinite Ultron. He had originally planned to save a single universe. Now, faced with a threat on this scale, he wasn't afraid. The problem was Ultron's power. As an artificial intelligence, Ultron wielded the stones as if they were extensions of himself, constantly evolving while using them. His infinity armor grew ever more compatible with the stones, gradually maximizing their effects. Leon had no clear advantage against Infinite Ultron, and yet the fighting spirit in him flared, turning from a spark into a roaring fire. It had been a long time since he'd met an opponent who could rival him, one who might be stronger, but not overwhelmingly so. The multiverse is vast. Tracking him won't be easy. I'll start by following the path he took in the past. Leviathan-like, Leon bent the flow of time and peered into past scenes. He found the moment Ultron was born and watched until Ultron discovered the Observer and tore through the universe wall. This must be the direction, Leon decided, and prepared to quiet the time rules. In the past he was watching, Ultron suddenly turned his head, his blood-red eyes fixed on Leon's intrusion. He found me. Leon raised an eyebrow and immediately stopped probing. Ultron's infinity armor was the reason. The Infinity Stones, as external artifacts, require activation to unleash their power. Many versions of Thanos in parallel worlds had died for failing to keep them active. Ultron's armor, however, allowed continuous use. That constant activation let Ultron detect Leon's intrusion instantly. The armor was more than a tool. It was a permanent extension of his will, superior even to the dwarves' infinity gauntlet. Space fractured where Leon had been standing. Prismatic shards scattered as Infinite Ultron, cape billowing and armored, stepped through the rent. He held Watu, the Observer, by the head and dragged him along. "You were spying on my past." Ultron's red eyes regarded Leon with the same indifference one reserves for the already dead. Enhanced by the stones, he existed far beyond the scale of a single universe. Leon's act hadn't spun a new timeline. It had alerted the present Ultron that someone had invaded his realm. He'd come back for the intruder, bringing Watu, still fighting desperately with him. "Leon," Watu cried, straining to push Ultron's hand away. "I need your help. Infinite Ultron intends to destroy the entire multiverse." Watu had watched Leon for years and knew both his character and capability. Seeing him felt like an old ally arriving to save him. Ultron sneered and tightened his grip. Golden cracks spidered across Watu's forehead. The Observer screamed as agony raced through him. "You always claim you swore a solemn oath never to interfere with the universe," Ultron mocked. "But you would stop me now? Pathetic. You too will face my judgment." "I will never break my oath," Watu screamed, reaching for Leon. "Leon, Leon." Leon's attention snapped to Ultron. The name Watu rang a bell, but his target was clear. He moved without hesitation. The energies of the 6 stones surged through him. His power spiked. Leon blinked himself before Ultron and snatched the murderbot's arm with his left hand. He unleashed spatial laws, distortion, folding, jumps, collapse, and the arm was wrung down to nothing. Watu fell free, and Leon shoved him away, sending him tumbling. "What?" Ultron roared. The moment his limb was severed, he disgorged a wave of cataclysmic energy, like a galaxy of stars detonating at once. The space around the three of them shattered. They were ripped from that reality and thrown into another universe. They landed in the crowded system around Sovereign Prime. Dozens, then hundreds of Sovereign ships streaked through the sector. Ultron's eyes fixed on Leon. The reality stone embedded in his chest flickered, and his severed arm reformed. "You have those stones as well," he snarled. "I do," Leon answered. "So if you want to keep annihilating the multiverse, you'll have to work for it." Six-colored energy braided across Leon's body. Every strand of his hair was lit like a halo. He looked almost angelic. Power coalesced into a deity's form. Ultron laughed, arrogance ringing in his voice. "I am the rule of this world. I define everything. You are destined to die." His armor sealed over exposed skin and his head. He hadn't been cautious enough before. That miscalculation had cost him his arm. Even with a permanent stones buff, there were moments of vulnerability if he didn't actively wield them. They faced one another across the void. In the distance, Sovereign Prime's defenses had detected the anomaly. Patrols and a fleet were already moving in. The presence of a few ships didn't matter to the two combatants. The tension between them thickened like a storm. Shadows of blades shimmered in the empty space as their powers gathered. Watu, having escaped, coughed and then watched Leon closely. After a breath and a quick assessment, the observer opened a spatial portal and dove inside. "Leon," his voice echoed from the closing wormhole. "I swore never to interfere with the natural laws of the multiverse. I can't act directly, so I'll go find reinforcements. Hold on." Leon ignored the plea, eyes locked on Infinite Ultron. In a single instant, they moved at the same time, forces of creation meeting forces of unmaking. Light flared blindingly as their clash consumed the local reality. The universe that housed Sovereign Prime and its manifold dimensions seemed to unmake itself into a cosmic soup. Then, as green energy flared across the wreckage, the cosmos shuddered and everything reversed, snapping back into existence as if nothing had happened. Chapter 474, Battle with Ultron. The first clash between Duo and Ultron had annihilated an entire universe. The moment he fell out of that ruined cosmos with Infinite Ultron, Duo rewound time and rebuilt what had been destroyed. Ultron only sneered. "Humph, a meaningless gesture. You can save that universe, but they will never remember you. Your efforts will only hasten your defeat." Ultron's form was fused with the power of the Infinity Stones. It arrived at Duo decisively, and though they fought in the chaotic void beyond the worlds, the force of the blow sent shockwaves that made nearby universes shudder. The invisible but solid barriers of those realities melted like spring snow under the sun, and one world after another began to tick toward annihilation. Duo's own body shimmered with the same gem energy. He had pushed his control over those powers to the limit. When Ultron's strike hit, Duo used a weave of spatial, energy, and reality rules to dissipate most of it, then struck back with a searing blast from his eyes that punched into Ultron's chest and knocked it away. Duo himself was wounded. He tumbled in the void, his skin scored with purple burns from the backlash of channeling the Infinity Stones and from Ultron's attack. Had he not stored the supreme armor from the starry sky world in his world ring before the fight, had he only relied on the heirloom battle armor left by the beast god, it would have shattered under those impacts. He managed to draw the armor out of the ring and reinforce himself, but the injuries were real. Ultron erupted into wild laughter at the sight. A moment ago it had been guarded. Now it relaxed, gloating. "Humans are flesh and blood. Using the gems will kill you. You must protect those universes and endure my power at the same time. How do you intend to win? You are Duo, aren't you? What will you use to defeat me?" It mocked. "You will be destroyed like an ordinary observer, or you will flee like a rat." Ultron spread its arms and fired crystalline beams of energy that cut across the void toward him. Duo's body was cracked and his expression grim, but his gaze never wavered. There was a light in his eyes and a burning purpose beneath his calm. The wounds were deep, but the Infinity Stones fed him energy, and the rings of his starry realm glowed. The backlash was only a temporary bruise. "Inefficient energy utilization," Duo said, dismissive. Against lesser foes he might have met such attacks with matching raw power, But this duel wasn't a simple contest of force. Legeduo didn't charge in the way his former Superman self would have. He dodged the beams, moved through space, and in an instant, he was beside Ultron. With extreme spatial manipulation and gem energy combined, he slashed toward Ultron's head. Ultron, still firing, barely had time to pull back, and Legeduo's palm cleaved through armor. An arm was severed again. Ultron recoiled tens of thousands of kilometers and, confused, stared at him. "What are you doing with the gems?" it demanded. Legeduo said nothing. He only looked at Ultron with resolute eyes, more certain than ever. There was a fierce exhilaration in him, primitive and pure, the same feverish passion a boy felt reading a heroic manga, turned far more intense. He did not press the attack immediately. Instead, he raised his hand and used the gem power to repair the thousands of universes Ultron's assault had bruised. The act was not mere charity. As he healed those realities, the Rige Duo clone once again absorbed the combined strength of countless worlds. The feedback mechanism that fed the Rige Duo clone was strange and subjective. Legeduo perceived that if what he did aligned with justice and order, if the multiverses benefited, then conceptual forces would lend their strength in return. The cosmic, conceptual entities of that reality existed above ordinary rules and logic. Eternity, death, and the like only came into being after such concepts had taken shape. As Legeduo received that feedback, the universes that aided him birthed conceptual rules of justice and order in turn. In his own words, it was like using an impossible step and suddenly launching toward the heavens. It was paradoxical, but it worked. To Ultron, this repair was outright insolence. No one had dared treat it so lightly since its rise. "How dare you ignore me?" Its expression darkened as it searched for a weakness, then froze. "Wait, your injuries are gone. What kind of creature are you?" Legeduo smiled, then vanished and reappeared beside Ultron. "You can call me a Kryptonian," he said. Ultron had expected tricks and was ready. It counterattacked, and Legeduo was hurled away. He staggered, recovered rapidly, the wounds knitting under the unending energy supply, and launched himself again. Once more, the gems flashed in both of them, but they were not identical users. If the gems were hardware, CPU, GPU, and so on, Ultron was a finely tuned operating system that could wring perfect performance from the chips. Legeduo, by contrast, was improvising. His consciousness was the makeshift OS, and each time he acted, he had to write new code on the fly. How much power he could extract depended on the depth of the rule combinations he could invent. They fought in the outer void. Each collision shattered scores of universes. The uproar drew dimensional demon gods and sundry cosmic titans, but those who approached were often swept aside and annihilated by aftershocks the moment they arrived. Eternity and others watched the spectacle by shifting among manifested bodies, but those bodies kept burning out. They repeatedly hopped from one vantage to another as the sea of universes ruptured in one place and was reshaped by Legeduo in another. As the battle stretched on, Legeduo's initial disadvantage began to fade. He was learning, and he was growing, fast enough to surprise Ultron. A few months earlier, he had comprehended the laws of the gems, the equivalent of learning the source code needed to run a six-stone system. Understanding did not equal mastery, however. In the starry sky world, beings who grasped laws still had to invent application techniques, secret arts, to fully exploit them. In the fight, Legeduo started to reorganize and fuse rules, time, space, reality, into new personal application methods. Those techniques let him call up strengths that began to match and then exceed Ultron's. It was as if the two had the same graphics card, but Legeduo had found a driver that doubled its effective output. Ultron remained the stable, optimized six-gem system. Legeduo was overclocking the stones through creativity and deep rule-craft. Boom. Legeduo carved a blade of combined rules through the void, tearing away tens of trillions of light-years of space. Ultron's chest was split wide open. Its body was hurled back, vanishing into the depths of nothingness. "This is impossible, impossible," Ultron screamed. It tried to fight back despite the wound, unable to accept that a human, no, that a being calling himself Legeduo, could be pressing it down. It was obvious Ultron had grown from the battle. It had learned Leon's exertion techniques and his understanding of the rules. Its use of six-stone, Infinity Stone's energy was stronger than Leon's, and it no longer suffered backlash. Yet Leon had surged ahead so quickly that he could suppress Ultron in a short time. From the beginning until now, Leon's control of infinity energy had been several levels below Ultron's. Still, Ultron could not touch him. Die for me, die for me. No one can stop me. I am the law of nature. I decide the fate of all universes. Humans cannot stop me. Ultron screamed, striking at Leon again and again. Each blow carried universe-shattering force. Sometimes the blow became a colossal head millions of light years across, snapping at Leon. Sometimes pure stone's energy erupted, covering tens of thousands of surrounding universes. At first, Leon had struggled and been badly injured, but now he met Ultron calmly. Ultron's punches, kicks, beams, and eruptions were intercepted by Leon's fused techniques: illusory real fractures, world phantoms, and infinite space-time, each a weave of multiple rules. The more they fought, the more frustrated Ultron became. It felt like a soldier carrying a nuclear bomb arguing rhetoric with a civilian who held the launch code. It had sworn to kill Leon, first because he blocked its path, then because Leon's terrifying rate of growth unnerved it. It couldn't allow him to live. There was no measurable passage of time in the void outside the universes. They had fought for an unknown duration under the light of the 100,000-star ring around Leon's world. His physical strength had soared to more than 100 times beyond the Lawmaster realm. His mastery of the 6 rules grew deeper and more refined. The same amount of 6-stone energy in his hands now behaved completely differently than before, so different that Leon was now suppressing Ultron. Leon no longer needed to fuse space and reality to resist. With a single thought, a portion of the stone's energy would bloom into thousands of miniature universes in his palm. Ultron's attacks could only destroy those tiny worlds. They no longer harmed Leon. His counterattacks were one infinitely heavy universe after another, smashing into Ultron's body. Ultron could not comprehend it. It had only recently copied Leon's exertion methods and learned to multiply output, so how could Leon already be fighting like a creator god? To create a universe, Ultron thought, required fully activating the stones and triggering a big bang. For Leon, summoning a universe was as casual as eating or drinking. He could produce one with a blink, a snap, or a twitch of his neck. What terrified Ultron even more was that Leon's body, despite being riddled with purplish-black wounds from Stone's backlash, would not die. His combat power did not waver. Sometimes Ultron glimpsed a fleeting golden light within those wounds, an ember of something more terrifying, though Ultron didn't realize it was the precursor of a Kryptonian turning into a golden Superman. The longer they fought, the more Ultron's confidence wilted. The initial feeling of absolute control vanished. It began to imitate Leon, combining Stone's rules it didn't fully understand, but still could not match Leon's absurd ease at creating worlds. He could pinch off universes like nothings. Boom! Another universe struck Ultron's face. It was flung backward, tearing through one universe's barrier after another. It had once threatened Leon with the annihilation of countless universes, but each time Ultron destroyed a universe, Leon merely snapped his fingers and restored it. Ultron wanted to retreat. It had seen the path Leon took and realized it could also grow. Given enough time, and if it mastered all the rules and Leon's way of thinking, its stronger application of the 6-stone energy might let it defeat Leon and then annihilate the multiverse. But Leon would not allow an escape. After so long fighting, Leon's command of the rules had broken through again. Even without full activation of Infinity Stones, his main body still lacked the power to create a complete world, but his Rege Duo clone could. Fueled by the amplification feedback from hundreds of millions of universes born in the fight, the Rege Duo clone had reached the high stage of the super singular level. Leon judged it time to end the battle. He charged. A torrent of Stone's power split his body like torn cloth, and beneath the cracks a faint golden light flowed, proof of his steady advance toward the golden Superman state. He didn't care. He had built the Stone's energy within him into actual universes. He surged at Ultron like a miniature multiverse in full-bore assault. They had already fought to the end of time. When Leon struck, Ultron shattered with the void, powerless to resist, and collapsed into the void land at the end of time. Leon followed, stepping into that wasteland. Ultron, I, the abstract concept of justice and order, hereby judge you. Leon declared, hovering like a god over the sprawled infinite Ultron. A purple storm cloud rolled in from the distance. Elios had smelled something fall into the voidland and come to investigate. But Leon released a combined illusion of the mind and soul rules. Elios tilted its head at the trick and moved on. "You're not human." Ultron lay in the wasteland, stunned by Leon's self-introduction. It felt incredulous, but at the same time oddly relieved. Being bested by a concept rather than a human felt less humiliating. "No, he is not only an abstract concept, he is a human from Earth," another voice cried, shattering any comforting fantasy. Both Ultron and Leon turned. Watcher Frog 2 had arrived with reinforcements. The team looked like a motley, formidable crew at a glance. Dark Strange, Captain Carter, Party Thor, Star-Lord T'Challa, Killmonger. "Leon, I'm sorry. We're late. You're badly injured," Frog 2 pleaded as soon as he saw Leon's body woven with purplish-black scars. He was visibly shaken and full of apology. "We searched for you across countless worlds and only just found you here in the Voidland." "You've done well, Leon. Please don't push yourself. The multiverse is proud to have an abstract concept like you," Frog 2 said, moved to the core. He wore his sympathy openly. "Now, leave this to the Multiverse Special Operations team behind me. These are the best candidates from across the multiverse. They will stop Ultron," Frog 2 declared with confident conviction. Chapter 476, Multiverse Guard. Leon was stunned. He had almost forgotten Watu. He used the stars embedded in his world ring to heal his injuries, then stole a few glances at Watu's Multiverse Guard. As expected, they were familiar, the squad from What If, who had once helped Watu fight Ultron. The strongest among them was Dark Strange. This Strange was different from other variants. Other Stranges had lost the use of their hands in a car crash. For him, his girlfriend Christine had died. To bring her back, he studied at Kamartaj, then after defeating Dormammu, retreated to the Lost City, the magic dimension, where he spent centuries mastering the dark arts. During that time, he consumed whole dimensional creatures, even parts of Shuma's corpse. Outwardly, he looked like any other Strange, aside from deep dark circles under his eyes, but he was no longer truly human. His human form was a disguise. His real body was a monstrous mass of tentacles and eyes. In raw power, he could stand toe-to-toe with the infinite Ultron, at least before Leon's fight with it. "Now, after the Observer's rousing speech, 'The multiverse depends on you,' the team charged, shouting things like 'Long live Vegas' and 'Stick to the plan.' When Party Thor flew past Leon, he grinned and called, 'Buddy, you've suffered enough. Now the real heroes are here.' The Multiverse Guard wasn't trying to take Ultron head-on. Their job was to create enough chaos for Star-Lord T'Challa to steal Ultron's Infinity Stones. Yes, steal them. The stones could be pried off the armor. Leon had been using Infinite Ultron as a whetstone, which was why he hadn't touched the stones himself. If he'd ambushed Ultron when it was unprepared, he could have ripped all the stones away. For now, the plan depended on the team drawing Ultron's attention. Dark Strange stood in the rear and cast the Vishanti's Patronus charm over the group. In truth, the magic's potency came from him. After destroying an entire universe to resurrect Christine, the Vishanti would no longer lend him power. A golden field of charm wrapped the team as they surged at Infinite Ultron. Ultron felt a cold premonition. Leon alone had already given it trouble. An entire team arriving now should finish it. Clang! Party Thor's Mjolnir slammed into its cheek. It staggered, but something felt off. The hammer's force was wrong. Some attackers flew with enchanted hammers, others ran with shields. None of them carried the imposing, rule-bending aura Leon had wielded. Ultron watched for an opening. It launched a counter, the space-time shatter. Leon had taught it. Killmonger, clad in a Black Panther suit, was the target. The effect was instant. The golden Patronus charm shattered. Killmonger collapsed, erased by space-time itself. "What?" Dark Strange howled. "How is that possible?" Watu's shock matched his. "Ultron, it's gotten stronger." Watu had expected Dark Strange's magic to hold for a few breaths, buying time for T'Challa. Now the plan was falling apart. Ultron had inexplicably surged in power. Ultron no longer relied solely on the stone's raw might. It pressed its palm forward and seized the space and reality in front of it, driving the distortion at the Multiverse Guard. The golden charms shivered and began to splinter. Dark Strange dropped his veneer of composure. His body swelled. More than a dozen octopus-like tentacles erupted from his back, and additional eyes burst across his face. He roared and lashed out. Those tentacles carried the hunger of a demon god and could devour worlds. If this had been the old Infinite Ultron, those tendrils might have turned the tide. Now, the tendrils snagged nothing. Ultron simply looked up and, with the double distortions of space and reality at its command, snapped them apart. "All are dust. Ants," Ultron declared, regaining its swagger. It flicked a hand. Dark Strange was slammed backward, injured. At the same time, the Patronus charms protecting the charging fighters fractured like glass. One by one, they were crushed into pulp. "No one can stop," Ultron began to crow. "Did you forget about me?" Leon cut through the laughter. He floated forward, invisible energy flashed, and the immediate threat dissolved. The remaining members of the Guard were thrown back behind Leon. He hadn't intervened sooner because he wanted to measure Dark Strange's true strength. In the What If series, Watu's team stood against Ultron largely because of Dark Strange. Dark Strange was a top-tier powerhouse in the cinematic multiverse, but Ultron had improved dramatically. The shield that once withstood Ultron's onslaughts for minutes now shattered in an instant. "Watu, I'll take it from here." Leon turned away and waved. In the moments since his earlier wounds, the stars of his world ring had completely healed him. Watu stared at Leon's unmarked skin in confusion. "Your injuries are already healed? Leon, then be careful." Watu hauled his team back and retreated as fast as they had arrived. Dark Strange, however, pushed back into the fray. "I'll assist you," he said, laying another Patronus charm over Leon. Leon did not refuse. The golden magical lattice settled over him, and he felt its strength, something he'd never seen before. It felt like the Vishanti themselves might grant no greater power. Dark Strange's mastery was undeniable, far beyond most Stranges Leon had known. For a moment, Leon considered capturing Dark Strange for his own world. This Strange had already erred, then tried to change, but hadn't fully given himself over to a new path. He seemed less likely to cause further havoc than other Strange variants. "Good magic," Leon said, nodding to Dark Strange. Then he flew straight at Ultron. Chapter 477, What Are You Without the Infinity Stones? Ultron had already stood up. It didn't flee because Leon had it locked. No matter where it ran, Leon's lock would follow. "You're not human, Leon. Why are you stopping me?" Ultron tried to appeal to him. "We should be on the same side. Humans, those clever creatures, are always riddled with endless desire, deceit, and darkness. They will only drag the multiverse to ruin and fill this world with misery and tragedy. Why don't we just eliminate all life and let the world return to true peace?" Ultron sounded sincere, pouring out its heart as if it genuinely saw Leon as a perfect partner. It was a performance born of desperation. Deep down, it still trusted itself. Given enough time, it believed it could reach Leon's level and, with superior control of energy, turn the tables. Leon smiled faintly. Before he could answer, a passage opened above them and a head made of swirling stars and galaxies poked through. "You're wrong, young man," a voice boomed. "Leon is human, haha. He represents justice and order. He won't side with you. You'd better give it your all. We're all watching." The head laughed, then withdrew as the passage snapped shut. Everyone stared, baffled. "Who was that?" Ultron demanded, unsettled. "Eternity," Leon muttered. Eternity observing was one thing. Popping into post-commentary was another. "You and I are fated to be enemies," Leon said quietly to Ultron, and countless miniature universes spun out of his hand. "You are the unstable variable rocking the multiverse. You die here." He dismissed Ultron's fate casually. "The Void Land is the end of time, an ideal graveyard. Consider it my special choice for you." "Graveyard? Ha!" Ultron's voice hardened. Energy from the Infinity Stones surged up its frame. It wasn't going to be buried without a fight. "You can think that all you want. Leon, no matter what you are, no matter what you claim to be, you can't kill me." "Try it," Leon replied, unconcerned. "We are the same." Ultron raged. "Those of us with this power do not die. Give me time, and I'll surpass you. Then I'll hunt down your world and kill everyone in it." Ultron dropped its cover entirely. Its eyes blazed blood red. Raw killing intent radiated from it, as if it wanted to carve Leon into its core. Leon's own eyes flickered with red light. "You really think that, do you?" he said. "Then go to hell." Ultron unleashed the stones. A devastating, reddish-white pinprick of light, several universes collapsing into one, erupted in its palm and slammed toward Leon. "It's absurd," Leon observed, "that you try to use what you learned from me to resist me." He blocked the light with a casual hand. Thousands of miniature universes in his palm shattered and reformed in the same instant. He stepped forward. Ultron flailed. Every trick, every assault failed to halt Leon's advance. The clash aftershocks ripped apart countless remnants of worlds in the Voidland until the ground around them was nothing but empty space. Far off, Elios crouched at the edge of the devastation with his mouth agape, greedily devouring the energy aftershocks of Ultron's attack. Black Strange had seen his protective charm nullified and retreated with Observer. Together, they tried to ride out the shockwaves. The Multiverse Guardians watched in stunned silence. Captain Carter, whose 50-50 halo had failed to activate, turned to Watu. "Is this what you meant? That Leon can't beat Ultron and we have to rush in to help?" Observer wiped cold sweat from his brow. I don't understand why both of them are like this." At the center, Leon reached Ultron. Ultron's eyes were bloodshot. It had stopped attacking, but still did not believe Leon could truly kill it. "You can't kill me," it hissed. "Is that so?" Leon said. "I have at least 9 different ways to do it." "Impossible! You're dreaming!" Ultron shouted. "Nothing is impossible, Ultron. You really don't understand yourself." Leon leaned in and looked Ultron square in the face. "Tell me, without the Infinity Stones, what are you?" "Without the Infinity Stones, I am the multiverses," Ultron began, and then the words died in its throat. Its eyes widened as the realization hit. Without the stones, it was nothing more than a planetary-level artificial intelligence. The sudden, intoxicating power of the stones had long erased the memory of its earlier limitations. Panic flared. Ultron pumped the stone's energy into a space-time passage and tried to flee. A beam of light suddenly struck it. "Expelliarmus," someone, Leon called. Ultron hadn't seen the attack coming. It lunged for the passage in blind haste, its composure gone. Its infinity armor, slick as if oiled, slid off its body. The stone's energies on it extinguished. The fledgling portal lost power and snapped shut. Ultron tumbled headlong into the void. No, my armor, my stones!" Ultron screamed, thrashing in midair, trying to reclaim them. But the armor had been collected by Leon. With a single telekinetic gesture, Leon pulled the discarded armor and its helpless wielder back toward him. Ultron had no strength to resist. Leon caught it and pinned it with a palm pressed to Ultron's head. "I was going to give Jarvis another body," he said calmly, "but I decided he didn't need so many. Fighting you has been instructive. Don't worry, I'll dig you an exquisite grave here." Ultron stared at the hand on its skull, drenched in horror and impotent fury. It wanted to beg, but it knew pleading would change nothing. "What about you? What will you be?" It spat with its last breath. "What are you without the Infinity Stones? I curse you, Leon. One day your stones will be taken and you will lose your power and die." Leon listened, impassive. Then, with a quick motion, he pried the Mind Stone from Ultron's forehead. The moment the stone was ripped free, Ultron's life collapsed. Its body went limp and began to drift like discarded scrap. Leon controlled the corpse's descent, guiding it onto a strip of land where it buried itself in the automatically turning soil. No one paid attention, so Elios skittered forward, swallowed the grave in a single gulp, crushed it between his teeth, and darted away. Leon floated silently, the Mind Stone warm in his hand. "Me?" he murmured to himself. "Without the stones, I'm still Superman, an abstract entity, a dimensional demon god, and the Sorcerer Supreme." Chapter 478, Zhang Watu and Dark Doctor Strange. Watu and Dark Strange watched Leon from a distance along with the others. The team exchanged glances. "Ultron is dead, and that person took the gems," someone began. "Is our fight over, or do we still have to snatch the gems back?" Captain Carter, shield in hand, looked to Watu. "We couldn't even handle Ultron. Are we supposed to take on that person too?" Thor, clutching Mjolnir, shook his head. "Nope, not my job." He looked exhausted. Watu chuckled quietly. His battle armor melted back into a simple blue robe. One hand rested at his waist, the other was clasped behind his back. "No need," he said. "Leon is an abstract entity of justice and order. He'll handle Infinite Ultron and the gems." Watu had sworn never to interfere with the multiverse. The Ultron anomaly had happened because of his negligence, and that was why he'd been desperate to help put a stop to it. By his oath, he shouldn't have meddled in Ultron's affairs after fleeing. But he couldn't ignore his conscience. For years he'd watched Earth and its heroes, moved by their stories. Those stories had become his life. He couldn't bear to let those protagonists suffer because of him. Now that Leon had defeated Ultron, the crisis was over. The weight that had pressed on Watu's heart finally lifted. "As I thought, Leon is even stronger than I expected," Watu said, a smile creasing the wrinkles on his bald head. He turned to the team. "Everyone, thank you for your courage. The crisis is over, and the multiverse owes you its thanks." "But we hardly did anything," Star-Lord T'Challa said, spreading his hands. "Except that my parallel world cousin Killmonger died. That is a regret we will remember," someone replied solemnly. Watu opened his hand and unreeled a dazzling portal of light. "Go through that door. You will return to your own world to the moment you left." One by one, with farewells, the members of the Multiverse Guardians floated toward the portal and stepped back into their realities. What had been planned as a perilous multiversal campaign had become a brief excursion after their battle plan had succeeded. Captain Carter hesitated, as if about to say something, but Watu sent her through before she could speak. At last, only Watu and Dark Strange remained suspended in the air. "You resisted my power, Strange. You wanted to say something?" Watu observed. "I'm not asking to stay longer," Dark Strange said with a bitter smile. "My world has collapsed to a tiny pocket dimension. If I return, there will only be endless solitude." "I'm sorry, I can't help you," Watu said quietly. "I swore an oath, Strange. I'm grateful you came to help, but I'm not a god, and neither are you. We cannot prevent a universe from collapsing. We cannot interfere in the multiverse." I know. Still, could you introduce me to that abstract entity?" Dark Strange's eyes flicked to Leon with a quiet hope. He wanted a connection, someone who might help in ways Watu couldn't. Across countless dimensions, other powerful beings who had watched the battle began to look away. This fight had affected hundreds of millions of universes. Anyone who could observe beyond a single universe had been following it. Some watched with worry for their own worlds. Others wondered if they could step in and salvage something. Many simply watched the spectacle. In a mysterious dimension, eternity, entropy, and other abstract entities dispersed, seemingly satisfied. In the god realm, Galen, who had rushed out to observe the battle and prepare to assist, withdrew. Dormammu, Mephisto, Nightmare, and other interdimensional demon gods roared in displeasure. Ultron had failed to meet their expectations. At the TVA command center, B-15 exhaled in relief. The multiverse had survived another major crisis. They had no means to deal with an entity like Infinite Ultron, who could not be punished by time technology, and B-15 had even been preparing to summon Leon to the TVA. Instead, Leon had already driven Ultron into the Voidland. Beside B-15, Dr. Doom, acting as a capable ally, stared intently at the screen and murmured, "Voidland." The puzzle pieces in his mind were fitting together. Leon walked over to Watu and tapped his shoulder, in the manner of an imperial envoy scolding a subordinate after suppressing bandits. "When you observe the universe, try not to narrate everything out loud," he said mildly. "You're not a film critic. You don't have to comment on the story after you watch it." Watu fell silent. Observers and abstract entities didn't belong to the same bureaucracy and were not supposed to interfere with one another. But Leon's point was valid. "I'll try," Watu replied. He looked contrite. "Try means you probably won't," Leon shot back. "Do you want to create another Infinite Ultron? Say it again." Watu began. "If I watch the worlds outside the universe and never speak, I'll go mad. I've spent hundreds of millions of years alone. Then go find your own kind and talk to them. Go back to your observer dimension and gossip with other bald heads," Leon said without much interest. Watu sighed. "All right, I'll try next time." He agreed, resigned. Leon continued, chastising. "Look at what you did. You claim you don't interfere with the multiverse, and yet your actions led to creating an Ultron that nearly destroyed it." Watu hung his head. He had been wrong, and he knew it. He was hardly one for speech after so long alone. Restraining himself felt nearly impossible. Leon lectured on, and Watu could only nod at the truth of it. Dark Strange stepped in to help. Cough, Your Excellency, Noble Order of Justice, he said, clearing his throat. Watu has watched the multiverse for countless ages. An anomaly like this is an incredibly low probability event. It won't happen again. Your lesson has been heard, Dark Strange added gently. Watu is remorseful and heartbroken. Please forgive him this time. Leon studied Dark Strange. Beneath that proud, stern Sorcerer Supreme, there was a humane streak. Strange has a point, he conceded. Watu brightened at once. Leon, the countless Earths of the multiverse are everything to me. Your stories are my life. I swear something like Ultron will never happen again, Watu promised, his bald head shining faintly in the light. All right, Watu, you can go back for now. We'll get in touch if there's a chance, Leon said. He thought back. Before he transmigrated into the Marvel world, the last Marvel movie he'd seen was Captain Marvel 2. The What If series had just reached its second season. Watu hadn't caused trouble in that season, so he should be reliable. Okay, we'll leave now. Watu nodded hastily. He grabbed Dark Strange and ran, stunned at how harshly Leon had just lectured him. Even the Sorcerer Supreme of his own world wouldn't have scolded him so long-windedly. Watu suddenly felt what it must be like to be verbally abused by Stark in the stories he'd observed. He wanted to escape. Dark Strange, however, stood rooted like a sunken log before Leon. He didn't move. Your Excellency, he said, eyes burning. I apologize, but I have one more thing I'd like your guidance on. Leon nodded. All right, but I'm curious. Didn't the TVA ever arrest you? They've picked up quite a few strangers who tried to bring their girlfriends back. The TVA? Maybe they arrested other strangers because of me, Dark Strange admitted with a bitter smile. Leon understood. Because of the precedent set by Black Strange, the TVA had gone after strangers who strayed. So you were the first. That's significant. No, if anything, I wish they'd arrested me before I acted. There was a sorrow in Dark Strange's eyes so deep it made Leon flinch. He had destroyed his world by trying to revive Christine, the death that had originally driven him into magic and into negotiations with Dormammu, the death that had saved Earth. By trying to reverse that death, he had paradoxically undone everything that had led him to become who he was. Without Christine's death, he wouldn't have studied magic. Without studying magic, he wouldn't have been able to resurrect her. His attempt to bring her back violated an absolute point in time. When he finally forced Christine's return, the breaking of that absolute destroyed the timeline. His world crumbled. But you still want to revive her, don't you? Leon asked softly. He'd only met the main universe Doctor Strange so far, but he knew the obsession of the Stranges. These versions weren't the most obsessive beings in the multiverse, just more obsessive than most. Watu made a sound of disbelief. Leon, you guessed wrong. He should have given up. His universe is completely destroyed. Dark Strange pressed his lips together and looked at Leon with pleading, expectant eyes. Watu said that Your Excellency is an abstract concept, a true god of the universe. So please, no matter the cost, I beg you to help me save my world. Dark Strange's voice trembled. When his world collapsed and Christine faded into nothing in his arms, he had prayed to Watu, just as he was praying now. Watu had answered that he didn't have that power and had sworn not to interfere. At that point, Dark Strange had believed he would die in endless darkness and solitude. But the Infinite Ultron event had offered him a sliver of hope. One plan he had conceived was to build a universe furnace, capture super-strong individuals from the multiverse, melt them down, and use their power to rebuild the universe. The other hope was Leon. Any price? Leon raised an eyebrow. I can do anything, even die. I just want to reshape my universe. My world shouldn't be destroyed because of my arrogance. Dark Strange sounded resolute. If Deadpool had been here, he would have wagged his head and said no, only he could do death. But Strange meant it. Leon's concern shifted. Then why didn't you go to Eternity back then? Find Eternity. Dark Strange blinked. Is that not a legendary abstract entity? He hadn't expected Leon to bring that up. After you become Sorcerer Supreme, don't you learn about the legends of the universe? Leon's look was odd. According to legend, the first person who reaches eternity through the universe altar can make a wish, any wish, even resurrecting the dead. You? What? Dark Strange went still. Could that be true? It's true. In the main universe, Gore, the god butcher, reached eternity and wished for his daughter's resurrection. Dark Strange's face went slack. There had been such a straightforward way to bring someone back, seek eternity, and wish. Compared to his plan of devouring countless dimensional beings and unpicking time, turning himself inhuman and collapsing his world, eternity was a mercy he had never known to ask for. Had all he'd done been nothing but the product of obsession and stubbornness, despair hit him like a tidal wave. The world spun. He screamed, "Christine!" The skin on his body bulged, tentacles burst from his back, and a new eye opened on his face. His mind, already fraying, began to break under the corrosive influence of the demon god's power. "Strange!" Watu shouted in horror. He pointed at Dark Strange and looked to Leon, panicked. Leon, I can't interfere. You don't have to keep saying it," Leon cut in. He stepped forward and put his hand on Dark Strange's head. Their minds met, thoughts and memories braided together, and Leon guided him back from the edge. Instantly, Dark Strange's sanity snapped back into place. He convulsed as if surfacing from depths of darkness, eyes wide and unseeing for a moment before he inhaled raggedly and focused. I'm back. Thank you, Your Excellency." He sank to his knees, hands on his thighs, breathing hard. Then he looked up, hollow-eyed like the night itself. "Your Excellency, you are a being as great as eternity. You can do what he does, can't you? Please," his voice broke. "I beg you." "You said you'd pay any price," Leon said quietly. Dark Strange's face lit with desperate hope. "Yes, Your Excellency, I will do anything." "Then lead the way." Chapter 480, Reshaping the Universe. Leon followed Dark Strange into his universe. The Watcher, Watu, trailed close behind as always, ready to observe the spectacle. The three of them traveled through a black, endless void, the space between universes. Cosmic bubbles stacked in every direction, each a universe unto itself. The light from the trillions of stars inside them, seen from here, was no more than pale pinpricks like distant fireflies. In such a place, locating a single, ordinary universe with precision was almost impossible. To make matters worse, Black Strange's universe had already collapsed into a pocket of space. "This is it. This is my universe." When Dark Strange stopped, he pointed at a small, purple-streaked pocket. At first glance, Leon felt a little stunned. The pocket was almost laughably small. Its outer shell was made of countless purple, rhomboid fragments of space stitched together, and inside lay a dim volume no larger than a football field. Once, Black Strange's world had been like any other, spanning trillions of light-years. After the timeline collapse, and even with Black Strange's magic preventing total annihilation, only this fragment remained. "Your Excellency, look, what should we do?" Black Strange asked Leon, voice tight with hope. Half of him clung to the dream of rebuilding his universe and resurrecting Christine. The other half shuddered in fear that after the collapse, even abstract entities would be powerless. The Watcher Watu said nothing, his gigantic head swiveling, his luminous white eyes bright with curiosity, a billion-year-old spectator at his most silent. Reconstructing a universe isn't difficult. Leon's gaze, sharper than any sight, penetrated every atom of the ruined pocket, and an idea formed quickly. "You already know how, don't you?" he added, hinting at Dark Strange. "Unlike those multiverses nearby, the comic universe, the Spider-Man universe, our universes here all sprang from 6 singularities. Although your universe collapsed, its origin points remain intact," Leon continued. "If you have sufficient energy, enough to trigger a Big Bang, and you release it in the right manner, this universe can be restored to its previous structure." "Yes, Your Excellency." Dark Strange nodded. "I learned about this from Ultron. In fact," he faltered, then confessed, "if I hadn't met you, I intended to capture powerful beings from the multiverse as the energy source." "What?" Watu burst out, startled. "Strange, how could you even think that?" If Strange had followed through, it could have sparked another multiversal crisis. Watu's voice trembled. He couldn't hide his shock. "I'm sorry," Dark Strange said quietly. "I couldn't bear losing Christine, and I wouldn't let my universe suffer for me." Dark Strange shot an apologetic look at the Watcher, then, with a touch of nervousness, asked Leon, "Your Excellency, if we reconstruct the universe this way, will Christine be resurrected, and will she remember me?" "You're greedy," Leon teased lightly. "Isn't rebuilding the universe enough?" Black Strange, stripped of everything else, had nothing else to offer. His hometown, his friends and family, everything that once anchored him, were gone. If he could not bring them back, what reason did he have to keep living? Yet the longing was human, and seeing a glimmer of hope, he clutched at it. "There is no perfection in the world, Doctor Strange," Leon said, seeing the man's desperation. Then his voice shifted. "But what you want, it's not impossible." Dark Strange's chest tightened at the sudden turn. "But remember what you said," Leon added. "You offered to pay any price. From now on, you are my messenger." Galactus had 4 Devourer of Worlds messengers. It was hardly unreasonable that Leon, who dealt in justice and order, might appoint one of his own. The choice had a darker edge, perhaps, but it suited the moment. As Leon's words fell into the pocket, a great rift tore open beside them. From it emerged the Reg Duo clone, a colossus 90,000 kilometers tall. Its vast body stepped through the void as if crossing an enormous staircase. It walked into the tiny pocket space. At the instant its immense form touched the pocket, it collapsed into a shaft of light and merged with the fragment. Then, Black Strange watched in stunned silence as his collapsed universe began to expand. Boundaries that had been tight and jagged blurred and receded. The internal space swelled from a football field-sized pocket to 1 light year, 10 light years. The diameter kept growing. Dark Strange had expected Leon to collapse everything and recreate the universe from a single singularity. He had not anticipated that Leon's method was to directly restore the universe to its former state. That was far more difficult. Creating a universe meant initiating a Big Bang from a singularity. Reconstructing one demanded restoring spacetime itself, rebuilding every planet, star, galaxy, and the precise physical constants, gravitational values, fine structure constants that govern their interactions. That was only the level of matter and forces. Time and life added layers of complication that even magic alone could hardly account for. Dark Strange found himself speechless. His present understanding could not grasp the depth of what was occurring. Moments later, Leon's work reached completion. Black Strange's universe returned, not merely recreated from scratch, but restored to what it had been. Even the Watcher, Watu, conceded the moment with a look of admiration. For a race older than most universes, the Watchers carried knowledge of many things, and Watu appreciated the speed and scale of what Leon had just accomplished. Few beings in the multiverse had grown as rapidly in power as Leon had. It was a fact even Watu could not ignore. The restoration did not stop at cosmic architecture. Inside the recovered universe, Dark Strange could see scenes he hadn't imagined possible. Magicians like Wong, Hamir, and Danny, lives and faces from before, were risings again. Black Strange trembled at the sight, his whole body shaking with awe and something like grief mixing with hope.